Support for the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, providing you the best tools for your grooming experience. It's time to gear up and get the gift or give the gift of shaving this holiday season. I'm talking about the Manscaped Perfect Package 3.0. Included in this brand new Perfect Package, which makes for the perfect gift this holiday season, is Manscaped's new and improved Lawnmower 3.0 electric trimmer. The greatest ball hair trimmer ever created, features an anti-accident cutting-edge ceramic blade, long-lasting battery, waterproof technology, and an LED light feature to illuminate grooming areas for closer and more precise trimming. The Manscaped Perfect Package 3.0 includes literally everything you need to keep trimmed, cut-free, and smelling nice down there. Trimmers, deodorants, moisturizers, boxers, and more, all included in this package. 'Tis the season to manscape, so get yourself, your dad, your brother, and your friends the best gift of all, the Manscaped Perfect Package 3.0. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com by using code DIGGINGDEEP20.
Welcome to the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast with your host, two-time defending ATV motocross national champion, Cody Janssen.
Am I on air? What's up, everybody? We're back. I'm your host, Cody Janssen, and welcome to episode 39 of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, presented by our title sponsor, CST Tires, available for purchase at shop.csttires.com. We have a really fun episode for you tonight. We have Nick Gennusa coming up to talk TRX 90s, his Turkey Derby, and a real authentic look at current pro class racing from a current racer. We'll also have Josh Cline from PH3 Photos coming on tonight. We'll do some bench racing, answer some questions, give some predictions for 2021, and chop it up about an array of ATVMX topics. Looking forward to that for sure. And then we have rising star Zack Decker coming on to talk about his injury this past season, what his 2021 plans are, and we'll talk about the Decker training facility, of course. We have a jam-packed show tonight, so I want to get right into the meat and potatoes of this episode here. But first, we have to thank our sponsors who are all on board with us tonight. CST Tires, go to shop.csttires.com. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew, Valvoline, SSI Decals, DID Racing Chain, Wheaton Motorsports, the Decker Training Facility, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, Evans Waterless Power Sports Coolant, Forworks Carbon, DP Brakes, Gripped Gloves, Avocado Green Mattress, Roman Health, Factory 43, and Bikes, Trikes, and Quads, LLC. Support these great companies that support us, and for any products that fall through the cracks, click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website to help us out. Whatever off-road gear or parts you need, Rocky Mountain ATVMC has you covered. So before you buy, click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website to help us out. Now, let's drop the gate on this thing, shall we? The 30-second board is up, it's sideways, and the gate is down. Let's go. All right, guys, you asked for him, and we're stoked to get this guy back on the show. He's been here a few times now. Brought to you by Namura Technologies and Bronco ATV and UTV Components. It's perennial AMA ATV Pro Class Top 5 finisher, Nick Gennusa. What's up, buddy? Thanks for jumping back on here with us.
Cody, thanks for having me, man. I'm always happy to come on the show and speak and see what the people want to hear. It sounds like they have a special request this week. So,
yeah, I mean, we've gotten a bunch of messages, wanting to hear about the Turkey Derby, your pit bike ATV, mini bike race that you have every year. And we were just talking about that, a lot of people wanted it kind of leading up to the event. So I thought since we didn't make that happen, we'd get you back back on here now to talk about how the event went. So this past weekend was your annual Turkey Derby. Like I said, pit bike, pit quad event you have every year. It looked like it was more epic than ever. That's what people want to hear about. You took the win over Joel Hetrick in the Premier Quad class. So first of all, tell us about the racing.
Well, if we want to go right into the racing, it was tough. And I don't know if you got to see, but we had a video come out that was sponsored by CST Tires, and it was a pre-show right before the event. And there was a lot of behind the scenes of what went into the event and what makes it to what it is today. So as far as the racing, like I touched in the video, Joel, obviously the race was between him and I, and not that there was any slouches in the class, but he's a very talented 90 rider, and 90 riding in different 90 riding in general, I feel like is a lot different than 450 riding in so many ways. The aggression's still there, but also in the video I mentioned, Joel has been on a machine that's not older, but it's a few years old, and he's been racing the same one every year, and I don't think it was helping him, and I think it was getting harder for him last year. So after we raced last year and I won, he was strong that, hey, I'm bringing in a new machine next year to beat you. So I was excited for it because I liked the competition, and I could tell that I definitely had the advantage last year. Not that anything was done to my quad by any means. I always welcome someone to really protest my quad, and I throw the offer out there all the time.
Sure.
But I knew that the new quad would help him, because once you beat something, like anything else, I mean, I know loose is fast, but when you beat something down, after a while, it starts to go a little bit slower. So the race was very even. I thought it was absolute fair game. The GNCC guys talked Joel and I into starting back row for our main event, because we can only fit 6 wide, and there was 12 in the main. So,
okay.
I've heard all the excuses from some fans and some haters out there, and this was as fair as it got. I mean, I started back row with Joel and everybody, because everyone always complained, I got won the heat race, starts up front, gets the inside, and see you later, Nick Gennusa. So it's been funny because no one's really said anything since, and everyone's been pretty quiet, and I knew I would do that. So it was tough, though, because Joel and I started back row, and we just we put on a show, what people want to see. And by any means, it was not easy. I was absolutely trying. After I made the move on him, he made 1 or 2 mistakes and then threw in the towel, which I was a little bummed about. But, I was going to go till the end, and he knows that. I mean, I kind of get it, but I wanted to see a little push from him after I got in front of him. But I didn't think I got him till like lap 5. It was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the battles as you're coming, up to him. I saw it on a live stream, and I watched it twice actually, because the battle was so good, where you're trying to stuff it in there, and the lines, the split lines that you have make the racing so interesting. It looks like an absolute blast. So I guess I'm curious on what you think makes you so damn good on the TRX 90, because I mean, you're the guy to beat on a TRX 90. So what do you think makes you, stand out like that?
I like the attention this whole event is brought, not only me, but to the mini quad side of the world, because I feel like it's such an underestimated source of training, and people could say whatever they want about it. It's gotten me as far as I have in pro ATV motocross. And that's not my, full-time training, but it's always been something that I've been so involved with 90 riding, and I've taken it to the next level. And I built this, in quote, peewee track on steroids in my backyard. And it was just easier to ride that forever, but it's taught me so much, because number one, they're very slow. And number two, they have no suspension. So you got to learn 2 things from that. Number one, it's momentum, because they're slow. And number 2, because they have no suspension, you've got to learn how to ride smooth. My track is very technical. They have whoops that will absolutely put you over the bars if you're not good. And we saw it happen many times over the weekend. And, it comes down to who's the smoothest on one and who can be perfect. It's not such a fast pace, like it's fast, but it's not such a fast paced race. It really teaches you perfection. And people say to me, if you can beat Hetrick on a 90, why can't you beat him on a 450? And I think the 450 is hard in its ways, and hear me out on this, the way I'm going to explain this.
Okay.
I feel like the 90 riding is harder because it's slower and because everybody's so even, it makes it harder. And I feel like the 450s are easier to separate because they're so fast and you can make a mistake so easily. So the field, for someone like Joel, and I'm not taking anything away from him, I'm talking him up for sure on the 450 side. For someone to be as perfect as he is on a 450 is very difficult because of how erratic the bikes are. And I take a lot of it and try to shift it to my 450 program. But, I think my dominance comes from just having so much time on them. And really, I break down everything and I try to be perfect on one. And now hopefully I can bring it to the 450 side, having my new track now that I just got this year, finally, a little midway through my pro career, if you will. I'm excited. I feel like my dominance, just like anything else, it's time into it.
Yeah,
that's a lot of time into it that people don't see. So.
Right. It's really interesting to hear you talk about how the TRX 90 and, the stuff you learn there and your riding and your style and everything kind of translates, like you almost translate it to the big bike. So I feel like that's really interesting because I don't even know that anybody would expect to hear that. But you're exactly right. Like spec racing, basically, where everybody is riding the exact same machine, like you see it in cars or, I don't know, go-karts or whatever. Kind of, I guess, similar to the, some of the stock racing we now see in ATVs or whatever. But spec racing is cool. I've always thought that that's cool because now it's all on the rider. It's all on the driver, right? So that's kind of what the pit quad racing is like. It's like, okay, because, we're racers, right? So it doesn't matter if you're going 60 miles an hour or 10 miles an hour, as long as we're all on the same stuff. I feel like the cream's going to rise to the top and you're going to find a way to enjoy it. You're going to find a way to have fun doing it. So that's what I think is cool about the pit bike stuff, the pit quad stuff, is that, it's kind of like spec racing. You're all on basically the same machines. And that's what makes it interesting to me. Asking you why you stand out is because, hey, we're basically all on the same machines and Nick Gennusa is the baddest guy there is. So super cool to hear, you talk about that. And like I said, how it translates to the big quad.
Yeah, I've had no choice but to translate to the big quad because obviously I'm way more active on the 450 side of things. It's just how my riding's been. And again, I'll say it again, it's just time into it. And if I want to go back to the 450 class here, I think there's a lot of separations in pro ATV motocross. And I think we're so close in the 90 riding because the bikes are really that even. And I'm not here saying that Chad Wienen's bike is so much better than mine or a Joel Hedrick's bike is so much better than mine. It's just our setups, it's a pro production class, but we have a lot of mods and a lot of different setups, which gives advantages and disadvantages to each setup. And I feel like that's why no one's been able to touch Joel and Chad is none of us are really on the same stuff. I think if you put us all on true stock Yamahas, not the little mods, I mean true stock Yamahas, I still think they'd be first and second, but not nearly as far as they are now. They have very strong programs, and I think it shows. That's why I always liked my race, the 90 race, because it's such a slower pace, but man, everyone's getting into it. The GNCC guys are coming here, and they're very good as well too. And they're tough to pass, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
We started back row. This was fair game over the weekend, and Joel even started to the outside of me and beat me to the first turn, and he was in first when I was in third or fourth. I had my work cut out for me too. You could watch that video from probably 5 different angles where people had the whole race. It was cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. And somebody from 1,000 miles away, like I could still watch the event and was pumped to see it go down. So that was exciting. We could do a whole episode, Nick, on you talking about or us talking about some of the discrepancies, because you're exactly right. I've been passionate about my feeling for it's apples to oranges within the pro class, because there's people, the budgets and the support support and all these things. I mean, somebody like, like you put together your own program. And then there are guys out there, even, not necessarily the guys at the very top, but there's guys out there that, whether they're paying their way onto a team or, however, all of those intricacies, but that basically just show up at the track and race. And that's not what you do. That's not what I ever did. And then and again, taking nothing away from the top two guys, because Chad, he runs, he's running his own program, but the support that he has is, second to none. So going back to, I've talked to myself blue in the face about it on this podcast, but it's very difficult too, because when somebody first comes into the pro class, you have to race against Joel and Chad. You don't get to race against the lights guys when you go, like when you go pro on, two-wheeled motorcycles and motocross of that kind. When you become pro on an ATV, you're racing the best dudes in the world. And it's so apples to oranges. You got guys like Wes Lewis, and he did really good this year, and he was riding the same bikes that he's ridden for years. And it's like, think about that program, and then think about your program, and think about Joel and Chad's, and all, how different all of those are. That's one thing about our sport that is, it's cool. It's awesome that everybody can coexist. Everybody can line up on the stuff that they got, but it's not a level playing field necessarily.
I would love to have a separate episode on that, because I will 100% tell you how it is and what I think about certain things. And it's honest opinion, and I'm not going to bash anyone or bash myself or make excuses, because it's not about that. It's about the differences in our programs and why I think some guys are better, whether it be their discipline, the monetary backing they have, and I could really go into depth of what I think. I mean, going into my 7th year of pro class, I race with these guys every weekend, and I could truly see what makes their program and them a lot better. But this is how we talk tonight, I guess.
Yeah. Let's kind of bookmark that though, because that is something that I want to talk about. I would
love to do a full episode on that, because awesome. I can hit so many points of very honest opinion, straight from me, no BS. I ride for myself. I'm no filter on some things. So.
Yeah, you know what? And I'm always careful, because I never want to go too far down the road of there's always people that are so every time I do a question where people can send in questions, people want to know, well, how much do you get paid for winning a race? How much do you get paid for winning a championship? How much do these guys make? Blah, blah, blah. Well,
I could be the honest guy.
Right.
Right. Not make us look bad, or not make us look like we're, all millionaires. There's a very true facts that a lot of people miss.
Yeah. See, and I hate at times to even bring any attention to it, because it almost seems negative, but that's definitely,
I could point out a lot of positive stuff, but the people need to know. And I think a lot of it is everyone's trying to not hurt the other guy's feelings. And there's a way to explain it and be professional about it. And again, I feel like I can do that with you.
Awesome. Well, let's do that. We'll use this as a teaser. We'll do that going forward in the coming weeks or months. But let's talk about, again, let's focus back on the Turkey Derby a little bit, because you referenced the CST video that they sponsored and everything. I want to hear a little bit more, because like you said, the event's gotten so big. I can't even imagine all the work that goes into making this thing happen, from sponsorship for the event to the beautiful facility, the track that you have, handling all those people at your house, everything else. It's truly incredible that you pull this thing off every year.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Let's start with the CST video. So years past, Rip It Up Films has made the video for us, and this year in specific, it's had the most attention it ever has. And I think after this year, it has even more attention. And we've started to get sponsors involved, because I really feel like this event is so valuable to whoever is part of it, because of how many eyes are on the event. It's a fun event. It gets a lot of attention. It's all of us pros, in quote, goofing around, but we're all taking it serious on a scale that we can race with kids, and it's all the classes together. And I think that's where the interaction attracts all the fans, in my opinion, is the pros are racing with we're all thrown in the same class, which is pretty cool. So the video was very different than years past. We put a lot of time and effort into having it look a certain way. You know, there wasn't so much race footage. I mean, if you watch that pre-show, I mean, that looks like a documentary on the event because that's what we wanted. We wanted the story behind it, the ins and outs of how it started, I'm not sure if you got a chance to watch it, but it had video clips of me when I was like 12, 13 years old riding at my old house. It was ground up of how it's evolved to what it is. And in the video I say, and still, that it was never really the intention to go as big as it has. It just escalated to that point. It just, certain things got big, and it really got big when Chris Borich started calling me out because we've been friends in a funny way. Yeah. And then when I put on a race, and then Joel Hedrick joined in. So I was like, all right, well, let's get Gloop here from Rip It Up Films to videotape this. And then it was like 3 years ago, it started to get really big. And now we have such a great video from Rip It Up Films, that CST video, that we have just great ammo going forward to sponsors and exposure to the event. And I have some big plans with it in the next 2 to 3 years that I don't want to say just yet, but I want to get it as big as possible. I mean, not like insane, but keep it all in context because I really think it's such a valuable event to go, you know, to something really big. And I love the quad and bike together on the same day, stock engines and not crazy modifications. I think it's just what makes the event amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we do some. So we have a big pit bike race here every year, and it's a couple hundred entries. But that's the problem here is it's turned into, it's almost like a big bike deal where you have to have like the 140 style frame, right? Which was what I have, but you have dudes that have $10,000 or more in their bikes. And I still run stock suspension, but that's my biggest downfall is some of these dudes get through the ruts and the rough shit a lot, you know, lot better than I do because they have like CR85 chassis basically. And so it's a blast. It's still a blast. Like it's my favorite event of the year. So I can't wait to make my way out by you and race that thing one of these years. But that's what you're doing right, I guess, is where I'm going with this, is that everybody's on pretty stock stuff. It's pretty, like I said, kind of like spec racing. I like that because over here at our pit bike race, it's like people are riding souped up chainsaws. It's crazy.
Yeah, it keeps it very even. And to your point, like the 85 chassis, that's what people just dumping big, not big, but pretty big money into their pit bikes of bigger forks, longer swing arms. I like our stock race, and the more that it's gotten very competitive. And I think every one more year I've beaten Hetrick has made a lot of people, you know, it's funny because it's not really how I wanted to experience it in a way, but you know, I'd love to be winning pro class. And clearly no one ever likes the guy who wins. Like people don't like Chad Wienen when he was winning. And then you could start to see now when Chad took a championship back that people weren't liking Joel for that year or so. Just nobody likes the guy who wins. So I could see a lot of hate and negative comments and like a lot of people bashing me and my event with the excuses. But I look at it as, number one, I'm doing something right. And number two, even if I get beat one of these years, it's going to make the event look, hey, Nick finally got beat. But it doesn't matter because it's all the exposure into the event. Any exposure is good exposure. I mean, I'm not going to let it go easy by any means, but I think every one more year I win, people want to see me lose. So it's more eyes on the event. And that's what I've loved so much about it is the more I've won, the bigger it's got because everyone's trying to beat me at it right now. And I think I have the bar set pretty high, but like anything else, any sport, nobody wins forever. So eventually I'll get beat, but I think it's been fun up until this point, I think, and it's still fun, but it's why I think it's getting bigger because the same guy keeps winning it and it's all eyes on that person. So
Yeah, it's taking on a persona of itself, I feel like. So I like that. And like you said, kind of having everything pretty stock means that it's all about the rider. I like that. You touched a little bit on, Turkey Derby 2021, and you got big plans for the future and stuff. I did read, right, that there's a change coming for next year, correct?
Yep. So unfortunately, it's not at my parents' house here anymore. Um, and it's where it's been for the last 6 years. And man, I'll tell you what, it's very hard to top this place track wise. I mean, I've built probably 8 or 10 other tracks for people, mostly locally. I did that one down at Decker's place, which came out amazing. But just the property here in the dirt has been very hard to beat recently. But I have pretty decent machine skills, I think, on a skid steer to build tracks, and I have a good eye and vision for my new track, and I have a track built now. It's slightly bigger than what mine is here. It's at my new place, which is about 30 minutes away. I have a big bike track there where I train now. I'm starting to build my house there in January in about 4 weeks, so that'll go pretty quick. So hopefully I'm living there. The goal is to be living there this time next year so I can and it's why we didn't have, even though I have the track, it's why I didn't have it there this year, because we have so many accommodations here at my parents and access to everything. It's just a track there. It's just land right now.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that this house goes fast. We're on schedule with everything. So the track or the event's going to be moving there, and I think it's going to be just as good. It's just going to be very different. Like the whole property looks different, but we're going to bring the same energy, the same excitement, the same level of course. It's a different piece of property. So it's going to be a different course, but still built by myself. So I'm not going to make anything that's not up to par. I mean, I'm very picky and it's my event. So I'm going to put 100% my effort into it to make the track and the whole parking and everything as best as I can.
Awesome. Well, I think that everybody looks forward to that. Obviously, you've created quite the image on what people should expect for this thing, so we don't expect anything less, even if it's at a different location. Now, another thing I want to touch on is the Moto Fight Club Master of the Pit event. I recently learned that the ATVs would be included, and I've tuned into the Moto Fight Club. The Moto Fight Club that they first had, the Flat Track Fight Club when that happened. So I was already pumped for the Pit Bike Fight Club, right? And now we know that there's going to be mini quads involved, and you're going to be there too, from what I can gather. Tell me about how all that came about.
So Johnny Gallagher, most people know who he is, but he's a GNCC legend, very active in outside activities in the sport and small events and whatever else. Love the guy. He's awesome. So he called me probably 6 or 8 weeks ago, and he started talking about this event. It wasn't set in stone yet. It didn't sound like a pipe dream, but it was just talks, and then he kind of went quiet. Not him, but the event coming together kind of went quiet for a few weeks, and I didn't really hear anything, so I thought it was off. And then about 2 weeks ago, they got their budgets and they got their everything together, and it's a Ryan Villapoto event, and I committed to it 2 months ago, and then okay, it looks like we're back on. So listen, all I know right this second is somebody, whether it was Yamaha, it didn't sound like it came right from Yamaha. It sounded like a sponsor put the money together to buy 6 quads through Yamaha, and they're Yamaha Raptor 90s, which I have about 0 time on. So I have really no idea anything of, and I'm pretty picky with my pit bike set. Like I like to know where the power is, like just the way the bike feels. I don't care how slow or fast it is. So it's going to be another very even playing field, I think. And there's 6 of us, and there's no slouches in the race. As far as I know, it was myself, Joel Hetrick, Chris Borich, Johnny Gallagher, Walker Fowler, and Cole Richardson. I think that's us 6.
Yes,
So
that's what I have down here on the paper. Yeah.
Joel and myself is ATVMX, and the other 4 GNCC guys. I think Joel and I have the slight advantage being ATV motocross guys, and we've been the dominant mini guys. But I do not count out the talent of the GNCC guys and the aggression. They're not afraid to rub. I know that. And this is even. I think coming into this, if you want to look at it, that I have the best advantage because I have the most mini quad experience. But number one, this isn't on my track. I have no idea what this course is like. I don't know if it's going to be follow the leader. I don't know if it's going to be really legit. And these are all in quads that none of us have ever ridden, and they're automatics too. So, I'm going to the event. I'd love to win, and that's the goal. But, we're here to put on a show. And I think regardless of how, even if the quad is not great and we don't love it, you still put those 6 fast guys on that quad. No matter what the track, it's going to be interesting. I'll tell you that. And there's no secret that it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a curveball because before the interview, I didn't realize that we're on Yamahas, we're on automatics, we're on totally different program than what you're used to. So this is like I said, this is a curveball. But Nick, so originally I'm like, man, this couldn't be a better event for you, right? I'm thinking he's the mini quad, god, basically. He's going to be able to do it on the big stage, pay-per-view event, sponsored by Monster Energy, part of this Ryan Villapoto thing. So now that I know that it's on different quads, it's kind of like this is your opportunity to prove the skills that you do have over all the other people on mini quads. That's how I feel.
The way, and listen, I'm definitely a little bit nervous. I have everything to lose right now.
It's fear of the unknown, right?
I'm laughing at it because I love that kind of excitement.
Yeah.
And just no matter what the type of racing is, like when you're dominant in something and have everything to lose, it's a pressure, but it's a good pressure.
We feed on that nervous anxiety.
I wasn't, I would have loved to bring the Honda 90s because I'm just very comfortable on them. I have a lot of time on them, but
yeah.
I wasn't sure on the event, man. Do I really want to do it? But it's one of those things that if I don't right now do it, I'm going to have a lot of people, why didn't you show up? You should have showed up, and probably some regret. And I don't want to miss the opportunity to meet the right people or be not seen by, the right people.
Yes.
So I feel, this is another very even race day, very equal. And I think if I lose this, I'll definitely be a little bit bent out of shape, not happy. But if I win it, really, what's next? What can anybody say if I win this too? This is still another event, and this is so out of my type of mini quad racing. I have no idea what kind of track this is. This could be just, whoever gets the whole shot and you're taking insides the whole time, which makes things very difficult.
Yeah, the Moto Fight Club events so far have been so good, like as far as, the track design and stuff like that. I got to believe that the track should be I know it's going to be made for pit bikes, but there's going to be some corners that are set up for takeouts, and there's going to be some stuff.
It's going to be good, and I hope I can win because I like to. And again, if I can win this again, it'll be even more eyes onto myself, which just brings more attention into the event and brings more people, pointing their finger, beat that guy, which I like because I want to bring that entertainment side of things to the mini quad world. Because again, I just feel like it's so underrated of a level of racing when you put fast guys and pro guys on them. It's freaking awesome. I love it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it just brings so much attention to that type of racing.
Agreed. I think some of it is it's so few and far between, right? There's not events like this. So for the ATVs to be included in the Moto Fight Club thing, like you said, I think it's an awesome opportunity for you. I think it's an awesome opportunity for ATVs in general. It's gonna be a blast for you guys. Nobody's gonna want to miss it. Moto Fight Club Master of the Pit featuring this guy Nick Gennusa, Joel Hetrick, Walker Fowler, Chris Borich, Cole Richardson, Johnny Gallagher on the quads. You're not going to want to miss, like you said, Ryan Villapoto, Carson Brown, Willie Browning, and the boys on mini bikes either. So be sure to tune into that. Our guest, like I said, Nick Gennusa, he's got to come in as the favorite. I know it's a different quad. No, it's a different track. I know it. I know it's totally different deal. But based on your track record, you got to be the favorite. While we have you, Nick, I'd like to talk about your 2020 ATV motocross season for a moment. You referenced it at the beginning of our talk here, but down the stretch, you were one of the riders I was most focused on. We all know the story. You've been 4th or 5th in every championship you've ever entered as a pro. We predicted at the start of the season that this may very well be the year that you had the most competition for that spot. And it was made exponentially more difficult for you with a couple DNFs, but you went on a run at the end of the season. Your back was up against the wall and you claimed it. You claimed your top 5 finish again. That's clearly a spot that you've taken, and what would it have been 2015, and you've hung on to it every year since then. And given the opportunity, given the circumstances, I have to believe that you have to feel pretty good of all that you overcame this season, because I think even at one point you had your doubts a little bit.
Well, for sure, number one, I'm definitely proud to have done it again. Number two, just I had such a sour taste in my mouth right from round one. Never in my career, especially pro career, have I DNF'd the first round and started last in points, caught up 3 rounds, and then had another DNF. I mean, this entire season, I was never where I wanted to be this whole season. And the 2 DNFs were out of my control. It just, the way racing is sometimes. I'm glad I got to capitalize it on the end, and people could say that, I got lucky at the end because Myers was ahead of me, in points up until he had his last race. Even though we were tied coming in points and coming into the last race, he may have crashed, but am I lucky in that aspect, or are they lucky that I DNF 2 races earlier in the season that set me back? And I love Alan, a great guy. I'm friends with him, but you have to look at the whole picture of how my season went, and it just, the whole season I felt like my back was up against the wall. And 2021 I know is going to be a lot different from a couple things. Number one, having my own big track I feel like will help me a lot. I've never had that. I've gone down south in the winters and then came back home and really just rode sand pits. And now finally being able to clinch a track in the midway point in my career, pro career here is, I feel like definitely an advantage, not advantage, but it's definitely a source that I feel like I've lacked the whole time. I come into round one feeling sharp, the riding's there, and I come back home and then I'm still riding, but I'm not on track, so my sharpness slowly fades away. Unless I want to live on the road for 8 months of the season, which I'm telling you, sounds good, and some people, to each his own, enjoy it. But man, like, there comes to a point until you do it and see, the routine. I love the grind of racing, but there comes a point where you'll go backwards of draining yourself, of homesick, and being homesick, which I tend to get sometimes almost every year. And everybody's family situation is different. Some people I talk to, they're like, man, if I could be on the road for 10 months of the year, I wouldn't. And other people are like, man, 4 weeks and I want to be back at my house. Me, I'm kind of like, I'll get my training in, and I like to be in touch with my friends and family. It's just how I am. So again, having the track, I'm going to go back to being at home now and being able to not get that homesick feeling of being away for months at a time, and having that access to train, I think, will help. Got a starting gate now. Now it's in the facility and starts just whole shots, and I need to be nailing those. And I feel like that could help me a lot. And if I could have a strong season of hopefully no DNFs and no crashes, I think I would love to see myself in that top 3, hopefully. Like T Brown's out. I know Ford's going to be hard to beat, and there's no slouches in that class by any means, but it's going to be tough. But I'm ready for it, and I'm looking forward to the battles I have ahead of me. So.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, that's where I was going to go with this, as we, we looked at 2021, but even prior to that, I mean, you got this track from, as far as I know, you kind of got this at the end of the season, kind of towards the end of the season. And as you're talking about having this track, you're starting to post videos, all these things. I think that there's a serious correlation between you having your own place to ride and the hot stretch that you went on at the end of the season. I really think that those are related. So then as we look to 2021, I have to believe that you're as confident as ever, because you've always had, yes, you just talked about Bryce, but you've always had the consistency. You've always had the speed. And I think that your speed last year was better than ever before. We saw it in time qualifying, I think more than ever before. It's, you touched on the starts, and I hate to even bring it up because last time, or one of the last times you were on, seemed like, it was just this big black cloud hanging over you. But man, if you can get some starts, the consistency is there, the speed is there. And like you said, T Brown is gone. You could very easily be the guy that, slides into that, constant top 3 podium guy. But no matter what, we know that you're going to be in that fight. You proved it last year. And I think you having this track now, as we look to 2021, it's going to be like you have the governor off now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. And I think the time qualifying thing, I don't really know what it was. I couldn't even tell you what was different, but I was nailing, second in time qualifying a couple of times this year, third and fourth, and top 3, like very consistently. And I don't know what it was, and it was even before I had the track, just some things clicked and I just started to look at things a lot different and really study the little things that I'm going to even be pressing harder to, because I'd really love to nail a fastest qualifier, because I really know I can, because we're so close sometimes, some tracks, and I have the speed. And then, Thomas and I were talking at the bank when he's like, dude, like I couldn't get you in time qualifying a lot of times. He was giving me credit while I was giving him credit for other things. And he, he's like, you're just not the same in the motos. And I kind of laughed. I said, well, hold on, time qualifying, there's nobody in front of me. It's putting in a fast lap. Motos, been kicking myself in the butt. And people could say what they want about my hole shots, but you go do it. It ain't as easy as it looks by any means. And, when you line up with the 15, 20 fastest guys in the world in ATV motocross, they don't mess up in the start. And like they do a little bit, but a lot less in other classes. And when you have the Joel Hetricks of the world that can nail just about 85, 90% of our hole shots, it's very hard to compete with that, because he's got such talent and skill towards that I would love to bring out, and really not even to please people that I can get starts, but to please myself. I think I would really enjoy that self-satisfaction to show myself that I can become a good starter. And I really would like to become that, because I know my speed's there. I know my fitness is there, because I work my butt off in that aspect. But the starts are tricky, but I have quite a few things that I think could be differently going forward for starts next year. And I think that honestly could be it's not even so much my riding right now. I think the track's going to be helpful seat time wise, getting more comfortable, speed, coming into the weekends, feeling ready. But if I can become a better starter, I think that could not only change my season, but change my entire career of being seen more and being up there in races, more podiums. Because I know I can hold on the distance, no matter how rough or how hot it is in the race. I'm 90% of the time, 95% of the time I could prove that, but it's something that is very tricky, and I would love to really capitalize on those, that small weakness I have, and make it a strength. So.
Yeah. I mean, you're onto something, because I feel like even, me, and I don't like to really reference my own racing a ton, but I always felt like I was a pretty decent starter, going back to previous to my pro career.
I remember you ripping hole shots in pro.
Well, and you go pro, and it's like, it's demoralizing. It really is. Cause it's like,
man, people could say what they want, but go do it. Like,
and that's what I wanted. That's why I wanted to bring that up, is because it can beat you down. And that's why, when we talk, when I've had you on the show, you hate to even bring up starts, because it's this big, negative black cloud feeling thing. The only reason why it comes up for you is you have everything else. You have the fitness, you have the consistency, you have the speed, you have the drive, you have the motivation. If you get a start, I think most tracks, most weekends, if you get a start, Nick Gennusa is almost Like for sure in contention for the podium, no doubt.
I just feel like if I can take off within the top three, first, second, or third, I have a 90 to 95% chance of finishing in the top three. And
I feel the same
how
way.
I look at it. Sometimes, someone can get me in the first lap or two if I make a small mistake, but when it comes to going the distance and the aggression and then going truly 110% all the way to the checkered, I feel like that's where I could get back. And the Joel and Chad speed is very difficult. And it's if we want to go back to the 90, I feel like there's certain things that make us even. And then the 450 class, I feel like there's certain, it's not even so much their bikes are faster, but they have bikes that I feel like are a slight advantage on everyone's, just the suspension and everything and the people they have behind their programs, those two guys in specific. And they should. They're the two best. They should have the best people behind them. But I feel like that is where it's hard for us to compete, where I deal with and I love my suspension setup, don't get me wrong, but I think in general, everything can be better. It depends who you have working with you on that stuff. And I know for sure that, whether I have the same suspension as this guy or Chad, that there's different people, and I'm not mentioning names and stuff, but there's different people behind my program than Chad's, and it shows, I think. And again, they do deserve it. They're the top two guys, but it's very tough to compete when they have great people around them and access to certain things, and I'm sure they know what they have that others don't too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those guys, and again, you said it a few times, those guys are two of the greatest ever, right? So they deserve everything that they get. I feel like the thing is, and I kind of had this conversation with Thomas, but you show up to the racetrack with a program of your own, with bikes that you built.
Thomas and I's program are very similar, so it's good you're comparing to. Very similar.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you show up with your own rig that you drive there. You have bikes that you built. You have a program. You do all the sponsorship deals. You do all this stuff. That's what I liked about, what kind of the precedent that Thomas showed late in his career is, hey, I can show up in a trailer like everybody else with bikes that I built like everybody else. Yep. And was a podium pro class guy. So yes, it's apples to oranges, but I mean, you can clearly do it. And I also think that it's probably like, I don't know if I want to say it's more meaningful or however you want to say it, but when you wear all the hats, when you're the trainer in the gym, when you're the mechanic in the shop, when you're the driver, I mean, I even feel that way, and I'm not racing the pro class anymore, and I feel more prideful about it. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think that you have a ton of pride about your program, but now when you get podiums going forward, when you have the best success that you've had, ever going forward, it's even going to mean that much more because, hey, I don't have what Joel and Chad have, and I still made it on the podium.
Yeah, I would think Thomas and I's programs are so, he's not in it anymore, but unfortunately, I used to love racing them, but they're so comparable. And we had, I wouldn't even say he had advantages on me. I would say Chad and Joel's program, I could name 10 advantages those have on mine. But sure. I think if I look at Thomas's, he didn't really have advantages over me, but he did a lot of things better than me. And I will give him credit in that aspect of his discipline, and his knowledge is underrated. He's a very smart guy, and I respect him a lot because little things he definitely did better. And I think that does come with experience. So he, he's worked hard to get to where he is at his point. And I feel like, every one more year I'm in pro class, I learn those things.
Of course. I mean, that's what I was going to say to kind of cap this thing is you and I think of Thomas as being a top 3 guy for every single weekend, but that was at the second half of his pro career. I mean, the first few years, yes, he was like 4th right away. I mean, he was in contention right away, but think about it. Like, it's not that far off from what you've done. So if you became a podium, contender, a podium finisher every weekend for the second half of your pro career, we would think of you as we think of Thomas, as a podium guy every weekend. It's hard to compare yourself to Thomas when you and I were racing racing mini quads and Thomas was in Pro-Am and then pro,
Right. And he's worked very hard. I can't give him enough credit. He deserves everything he has. But I think the podiums would really change a lot for me if I can nail a bunch of them next year, especially with him out. I've said it a lot, like that I don't know if I've ever said it on one of your podcasts, but that third to fourth position exposure is next to none. It's when you get that third, it's almost as good as the first, because at the end of the day, when you post your podium picture at the end of the weekend, and that goes on Hinton Racing, and that goes on wherever else, Rath Racing, who's in the picture? The first, second, third guy, not the fourth. The fourth I'm telling, because again, I'll tell you how it is. And I'm in this position a lot, fourth, fifth. The fourth guy gets no exposure. Nobody cares who got fourth. Nobody cares who got fifth. It's top three only. And that's where I feel like it's amazing that I've even got attention that I have, but I think it goes because I've always been fourth, fifth, right outside of it. It gets attention, but first, second, third are the same exposure in my opinion. If I could get there and get my name up there all the time, I think it would really help me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I've had this, we talked about it. I think you did talk about that on the podcast once, but I've said it on an array of episodes that there's a lot of guys. There's that 4th to 10th. I mean, there's guys that are pumped. There's guys like me that are pumped when you were somewhere in the top 10, but nobody else knows. And because nobody else knows, nobody else cares. So you're exactly right. So hopefully we don't got to, you don't even got to focus on that no more. I do think that the sky's the limit in 2021 for you. And I think that, your brightest days, I think, are still ahead, and your pro career has been.
I appreciate that too, because I still feel like that. And I think that a lot of people think that, I've peaked and I'm in the peak, but I know that and this is not easy, but I feel like, number one, there's so much unfinished business with myself in the pro class, and two, that this is going to come down to me and how much I put into it in the pro class racing. I love the whole experience. I mean, sometimes I feel like being the pro ATV racer for 4 or 5 years is almost better than going away to a college or something, because the discipline this is such life experience of you get what you put into it. Yep. And these sayings are so important if it truly shows, and you get what you put into it, and whatever you put into it is what you're getting out of it, and nothing works unless you do. So you could sit there, complain, and sometimes I'll catch myself, making excuses and then stop, because at the end of the day, it's my own program. And the only one point a finger at me is me, and I'm the only one to blame. So I like that responsibility, and I like that pressure, and I like talking about this because it makes me put more pressure on myself in a positive way, that if you can talk about it, actions speak louder than words. You got to do it, you know. But I love to bring this stuff up because I have that mentality of work hard and give it my all, and I'm not going to go down by any means without a fight the entire 2021 season. And hopefully I could stay away from breakdowns and nail good starts and keep the consistent riding in. And if I can start nailing good starts and I could moto with Joel and Chad for, say, the first 4 or 5 laps I hung with them, that experience right there, if I did that 3 times in the first 3 races, man, what I feel like, I ain't learning anything starting in the back and then getting the 5th, 4th, whatever. And then the races, they're gone. Like starting up front. And it's where I think the Bryce Ford has accelerated fast, because his starts are there, and then he starts right behind the 2 fastest guys. Man, he's done that more times in his first year than I have in 5. And he'll build experience a lot faster than the guy who's not starting up front with them. And he deserves it. He's putting himself up there, and he's a great starter. But that's where I need to put myself, and that's where I feel like, again, I haven't peaked, because if I can put myself there, I will get better very fast. So.
Yeah, well, you've always had a chip on your shoulder. I feel like you've always had that chip, and I feel like that's it's always fueled you. And like I said, I think the sky's.
And I mean I think all the pros do, and I could see it in all of them. We just show it in different ways, because if you're too much of a nice guy and a pushover, I mean, in life, you want to be a nice guy, but in racing, the nice guys finish last. I mean, this is a job to a handful of us, and this is everyone for themselves. You got to take the aggression and seriousness to this and not really care what people think.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. You're 100% right. Nick Gennusa means business. I think more than ever in 2021. So I can't wait to see it. We're going to get you out of here on that, man. Congrats on the win this past weekend. Probably another one coming up this weekend too. Yeah. But I appreciate you joining me so much, buddy. I love every time we get you on here. You're a favorite guest of mine. I really appreciate it, and look forward to having you on once more before the season gets going.
Yeah, thank you. I think we should touch up on that other episode we were talking about. I think that'd be cool. And maybe a month or so, we'll touch base on that one. There's a lot to be said there, and I think people would like to hear.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate it, man. Thanks again for everything. That's Nick Gennusa, brought to you by Namira Technologies and Bronco ATV and UTV Components. Thanks again, pal. We'll talk to you soon.
Cody, thank you very much.
Man, I'll say this. I truly don't think that Nick Gennusa gets enough credit for the run he's been on the last 6 seasons. Riders have come and gone. He's ridden different machines and had plenty of turnover within his own program, yet each and every year, he's a top 5 guy. And how cool is it? He truly believes the TRX-90 helps him in the pro class. Now the TRX-90 craze is going to be crazier than ever after kids hear this. Be sure to check out Nick and the boys at the Master of the Pit event on Fight TV this Saturday, December 5th. Now, let the fun continue as we welcome our next guest. Enjoy. All right, guys, we're excited to sit down and talk to this next guest. He periodically sends me questions for the pod, hot takes and opinions, and overall is just always interacting with Digging Deep. So I told him, save up all your questions, topics, and takes, put them in a notebook, and we'd get him on the show to talk all about it. So with that, brought to you by DID Racing Chain and their 520 ATV2 X-Ring chain, it's Mr. PH3 Photos himself, Josh Cline. What's going on, man? Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, my pleasure. Glad to be here, and looking forward to some good conversation topics from last season and things coming up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's perfect off-season content, I feel like, to kind of fill the void for everybody that's missing it like we are. I know you're a big-time listener and supporter of Digging Deep, which we appreciate, of course. We use your photos pretty regularly for our social posts, so we can't thank you enough for that. And, like I said, I'm stoked to have you join us, talk some ATV motocross. But first, Josh, how did you find your way into our sport? I guess I don't know if you have a background in motocross or ATV motocross. So how did you find your way into ATV racing?
Well, it started a few years ago. I was actually at a local motocross track and looking for something to do with the camera just for, and they're bikes only, which was fine. And I hung out at the track, and the owner was like, yeah, go ahead and head out on the track and, see what happens. And I was out there probably 10 minutes, and bike goes by, front tire washes out, takes me out, breaks camera, and I'm like, oh, all right, let's see how this goes, It was the end of shooting that, and from that point on, I was pretty hooked. So I went to local races, found out what motocross really was. That was my first ever, basically, baptism by fire with anything motocross related. So found a couple local races, and then found out what Redbud was, because up until that point, I had no clue. And you want to talk about a big awakening. You go to a Redbud National, and that's a whole nother realm. So finding Redbud, and then coming back a couple weeks later and ATVs, and just finding out that there is a big difference between bike community and ATV. And I definitely enjoyed the fellowship, the people in the ATV side, and I just kind of stuck around from there. So I just, it was pretty cool.
That's cool to hear that kind of story, because you're exactly right. I mean, it's funny to hear that you were kind of hooked after that first, kind of situation you found yourself in. It's like so many of us that, you race your first race and you crash, and yep, for some reason you're hooked, or at least that's, kind of my story. But so kind of similar for you. But yeah, I mean, you go to a Redbud Dirt Bike National, and it's like a party, or, whatever. It's the craziest thing you could ever imagine. So So I don't, it doesn't come as a surprise that kind of hooked you, but yeah, the camaraderie, the togetherness, everything that comes along with that in the ATV community, and especially coming from Michigan. I mean, that's a great, strong, healthy ATV community up there. Probably one of the strongest that we have around. So that's probably something that played a key role in that as well.
Oh, absolutely. The number of participants was crazy, and then to find out where everybody is from, and having so many locals and great riders, it was to me it was enlightening to see the different aspect of from the bikes to the quads, and you get to know everybody, and it was an interesting moment. And what was really crazy was finding out who was who. I was walking the pits after the races were done, and I didn't know big names at the time. Like I said, it was all fairly new. I had walked over at Red Bud and started talking to a guy who had, just come off the track, clean and everything, and we were talking, and we ended up talking for like 20-25 minutes. And a buddy of mine comes over, he goes, "Hey, what'd you and Joel talk about?" And I'm like, "Who?" Had no idea who Joel Hetrick was at the time, and got to find out, and it was pretty cool. I had run to Walgreens and printed out some pictures for him and handed them to him because they were flag shots, and I thought that was pretty cool. It's the Red Bud iconic, shot.
Yep.
They were like, "Yeah, you were talking to Joel Hetrick, and this, that, and other thing," and yeah, I didn't know.
That's
and
crazy. And
talking to the pros, they were just like, general people, and it was definitely way different than the bikes, and scheduling interviews and scheduling autograph sessions for time slots. But just to walk up to the pros and have a conversation was really cool. And
oh yeah, the accessibility that our sport has is next level. But then I mean, there's something to be said about those top guys being so approachable. Guys like Chad and Joel, I mean, they're obviously the biggest two figureheads in ATV racing. They're across the world, the two biggest guys, and they treat so many people. I've watched them both treat some average Joe or some kid or whatever, and totally gave them all the time that they wanted and needed. And I think that's the coolest thing. I think so many people, even the younger kids, like everybody, you should never lose sight of that. So take that kind of lead from those guys. I think that's something that, really sets ATV racing apart. And that's a reason why so many of us love ATV racing so much, is that, it's different from other sports, different from two-wheeled motocross in that sense. And I really like that. So it's cool to hear that from you. But so that was all relatively recent. That must've only been in the last couple years, right?
Yeah, that was last year. Last year's Red Bud, when Gennusa took, his podium there, and, Chad's, heartbreak of a chain, incident, and me not knowing what was going on at the time, and having these images. They're like, "Do you realize what you just got?" And I'm like, "No, I have no idea." And so I sat down with a local guy and started talking about it, and it was mind blowing to be like, "Okay, I'm in it now." And
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and I thought that was last year, because I even remember getting some pictures from you at the time. Like, in the thing is, in ATV motocross specifically, and I'm not a photographer, but it seems like in ATV motocross, because the community is smaller, there's only so many photographers. When you're a photographer and your work is good, and then you're consistent and you show up at the races, on a regular basis, or people know that they can rely on you, I feel like you can create a following and kind of like a persona, in a presence inside the industry pretty quickly. Is that true?
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think after Red Bud happened, I didn't know who, the photographer was. So I messaged ATV Motocross, and I started talking to him and got linked up with Ken, and started talking to Ken. And he asked me, if I would be interested in coming to Ironman and for the season finale. And to me, that was a big honor. And to me, it solidified my thought process as to where I wanted to go with my photography. And it was at that point I said, I'm 100% in ATV all the way through. And to shoot side by side with Ken, he's a great photographer. And then you got, Trimble, Tremelin, you've got so many that are out there gloops with the video, and he even pulls out the camera, and he knows what he's doing. So, to have all these photographers out there and everybody, it's almost like a carousel when you're on the track. We all look for each other and we rotate. One rotates, we rotate around the track, and they're all great people. So it's definitely a big help to the sport.
Yeah, I think that you're so right. I feel like that's almost like a microcosm of the sport as a whole, because everybody's got to work together. Everybody's got to coexist. There can't be any of this, there can't be any conflict. I feel like we all got to work together for the betterment of the sport. Like even as a media guy or whatever you want to call what I do, I feel like sometimes there's that same feeling. It's like, hey, like we all got to work together, and I feel like I go out of my way to make sure everybody knows that. Like you kind of try to plant that seed, like we all need to work together just like you guys do. So I'm so glad that worked out that way. You got bit by the bug, like I said, by like so many of us, and then to see you at all the races this year. So at what point did you decide then, hey, I'm going to try to do this entire 2020 season?
And it was, I think it was, you go back to Ironman and being asked to come down. And at the time I was in between, do I want to follow bikes? Do I want to follow ATVs? With the local series, I started following the ATVs to kind of get an idea. And once Ironman got done and, hanging out with everybody, getting to know them, I kind of went home, evaluated things, went back to the website, looked at the schedule, where the tracks were, and I thought, you know what, I think I can make them. And I said, you know what, I'm going to jump both feet. And I committed 100% to going to Daytona, and I left my job as a photographer for a camper dealership, and 2 weeks later jumped on a plane and went to Daytona. So
all in.
All in, 100%, no doubt. And I said, it's going to happen. It's going to happen now, and don't regret it one bit.
I'd love to hear it. And now we know, I mean, hindsight's 2020. Now we know that you're planning to come back for 2021 from some of the stuff that I've seen on your social posts, which mean that, 2020 must have been successful enough that it makes sense to keep doing this thing. So, like I said, we know you're going to be back next year. Do you have any openings? How does that all work? Is it, like, if somebody listens to this, they're interested. Do you have availability for next year?
I was blown away at the response. I had posted about doing openings, and I limited it this coming season, because it was so many riders on a weekend. It was just nonstop. And
so how many riders did you have? I always wonder this, like on a regular weekend, how many people are you shooting? Last year I maxed out with 21 riders. That's crazy.
When I got done with that weekend, I'm trying to think which. I think it was, I want to say Red Bud weekend.
Okay.
Just because I knew the track. I knew where I wanted to shoot from. I thought, you know what, I'll be able to take a few extra.
Okay.
And I decided, nope, no more. I'm not doing that many again, because I was worked. And I think I had over 7,500 pictures in that weekend alone to go through. And I just decided that I was going to kind of narrow it down. So it was between 10, 12 on an average weekend. And
okay.
It was enough to handle what I needed to, and I enjoyed it. And it got chaos at times, some of the tracks, but 10 to 12 were pretty good weekends.
And then and I wondered this often too. So then, you upload just pictures, just photos to, your website or whatever. Do you get like a decent amount of people buying them there as well after the races, or is that not as big of a focus?
Online sales are pretty good. I actually still get orders. I think I had one yesterday from.
I think I ordered something last week, so I know some.
Yeah, you did. Buying. Yeah, definitely. And then Sunset, I had a couple orders, and they weren't even. I don't think they were regular points chasers or anything, and they were just from So yeah, the orders still come in. But with the clients and stuff, they get their own folder, and they download those images and stuff like that. So when you weekend bundle or you get for the year, you get your own folder, so you don't have to go through the 1,000 pictures.
Right.
It just makes it easier, and on the individuals themselves. But yeah, sales for the year definitely they help for sure. So
that's good. And I think that it's worth mentioning. I hadn't even had that written down in my notes, but it's worth mentioning because so many people go to these races. And if you're not a regular race goer, maybe you don't know where to find the photos, and everybody wants photos of themselves riding, right? So, I mean, when you take that many pictures in a weekend, you have photos of everybody. So, so I feel like that was worth mentioning. So do you have availability for next year? I mean, how do people get a hold of you? Go through that a little bit.
on my Facebook page, I posted about 10 spots for the year, and I have 9 right now pending out of that 10, which leaves me with 1 spot open. And those are guaranteed for the year. For each individual race, we get to the first race of the year, I'm going to post the week of extra openings. So I'm going to try and do 4 openings on top of the yearly 10. So that way I'm able to focus on riders and get them their quality shots, get them their quality product. So I'm not overwhelmed. So with on average 4 spots on top of the yearly riders, that's going to be, on for the weekend. And you just contact me, whether it be through my website or Facebook, Instagram, PH3 photos, either way.
Awesome. Well, it's great news. And like I said, just because people, maybe aren't going to all the races or don't lock down that, that spot for the entire year, that doesn't mean that you can't get a bundle for a weekend, or it doesn't mean that you're still not going to find photos of yourself. So, and like, if listeners went to a race this last year, just like Josh said, there's tens of thousands of photos out there to search through for this past season that are categorized by the day. So I mean, like I said, I was on the website last week kind of scrolling over some stuff and found some photos that I wanted to get of myself. So with that, let's get into this a little bit, because like I said, you come up with some really good topics and ideas that you've shot me in Messenger or other messages kind of throughout the season or since or pre-season, all that stuff. And I got to a point where I was like, these are good enough that we need to save these things, and we'll do an episode on it sometime. So let's get into it, because I'm excited to bring some of these ideas to the table for some discussion. So like I said, I'm going to kind of turn this over to you whenever you're ready. Just kind of start us off with something good, and we'll start discussing it.
Yeah, definitely. I think usually on the daily, I'll go through and I'll look at different companies' foreworks as a post, new stuff, new products. And then you see other posts from Rath or Walsh and stuff like that. You look at some of the comments that people are making. And I saw one comment and a question, and it kind of got to me too, just to thinking the geometry of all these different quads and what they come up through the years, and taking this and, this works with that. And Casey James Gray had a question on there. He said, is the LTR really that big of a deal, for referring to the front end for a quad? He said, or is it a really only negligible for the serious racers needing every advantage? And it was a post of the front end for Joel's new ride. And, it really got to think, okay, how much of, the different models are they putting together to get the optimum level?
See, now this is interesting. So for me, when I switched to LTR stuff years ago, instantly I was like, the time that, because for the longest time I kind of bided my time, because I'm like, man, it's I had all the stuff that was Elka, but it was all TRX style, front end stuff. So I was going to have to wholesale change my whole program over to LTR spindle front ends. Arms are different, shocks are a little bit different, the whole deal. Well, when we tested them, and it was at the beginning of my pro career, so it was early to I don't know,
weeks ago.
Yeah, 2012 or something. I don't know. And man, when I pulled the trigger on that, I was like, man, we wasted a ton of time, way too much time trying to not spend the money to change this over, because it was almost 2 seconds a lap, like back to back, same track, 2 seconds a lap when we went to the LTR front end, and it made my machine feel like it was twice as wide. I'm not kidding. So it was night and day difference. Obviously, I've told everybody since then, if you can warrant or make sense of the change, if you can do it, it's going to pay off on the racetrack. Now, where this is going with Joel, I mean, I actually not that long ago had this conversation we were having in the shop. I think it might have been with my dad. And I thought, I thought everybody with the Yamahas ran the Yamaha front ends.
Same. That was my thought.
Yeah. And I don't know now if Chad has always ran the Yamaha front end, because it seems like from the stuff that I'd been reading, kind of just reading between the lines, that maybe this is what Walsh is doing for Joel might be a first generation. I mean, that's kind of the feel I get. Now, I could be wrong. And I look forward to, because Joel said, hey, get me back on in the spring after I've been riding this thing for a while. And I'm curious, because he hadn't ridden the LTR front end, or he was just at the beginning of it when we had him on the show. And I'd be really curious to hear what he has to say comparing the two. But on a Honda, that LTR setup is just, it's so perfected. And that's what Joel and I talked about when we had him on, is, the LTR front end on a Honda, that whole setup is so figured out that it takes a lot to beat it. And he said, I mean, the Honda handles as good as anything he's ever ridden, the Honda with that setup. So it's going to take some time for him to get the Yamaha, where he knows the Honda can be at its best. But I don't know. I thought everybody ran the Yamaha OEM stuff. I really did. So I'm curious to see. And who knows if Joel's running that stuff, Chad's going to try it. So maybe they'll both be better for next year. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of what I think, Casey was wondering, is it top level beneficial only? Is the C rider, the rider is going to benefit, or the cross country guy is going to benefit?
Yeah, well, I don't know about, cross country. You don't know, because, I mean, you want your bike to be nimble. I mean, I would still think maybe they're running LTR stuff on Hondas. I don't
right.
know that for sure. In my personal opinion, and if I was riding one of my Hondas on anything, I would want that Suzuki spindle front end, no doubt in my mind, because they're so standout better. Now, I think it's a case by case, rider by rider. Like if you're a beginner and you're not hitting jumps yet, and you're struggling learning some of the obstacles and stuff. I mean, obviously, you're not going to feel it in that kind of stuff. So you should, continue to build yourself as a rider. But when you get to the point where you're basically doing all the obstacles, now you're pushing the corners harder, a rider like that is definitely going to feel the Suzuki spindle front end on a Honda, because that's where my experience is. There's no doubt in my mind that they would feel it. But again, I mean, if you're a beginner, a C rider, whatever, I mean, you always tell people, put your money into the way that machine handles before you put money into the engine, because a beginner rider, improve your handling. You don't need a bunch of motor. If you're able to handle the obstacles, the corners, the jumps, the whoops, all that stuff better, you don't need a bunch of motor. So I always deter people from, putting dollars into their motor when they have stock suspension on their bike. But kind of wait until you're, kind of improving and getting to the point where you're basically riding what you have closer to what it's capable of. And then that's when a rider is going to feel the difference in that Suzuki front end. That's what I would say for that.
Yeah. No sense in having all the power if you can't put it to the ground and utilize it.
Exactly. But I mean, there's so many people that don't know that. So, I'm glad that we could touch on that.
Yeah, that's definitely, with that in mind, and you get all these, the riders that put all this money in there, you separate these classes to, you look at how much is being invested in each class, and, the exposure to these classes. And it kind of brings you to the next one. It says, how do you grow a class? How do you, with the exposure and with the recent release of the new classes and everything going on? I'm really curious with now the women's class is on Saturday, and they're going to be running, they're definitely getting their highlight in. The exposure that the top women, riders deserve. and how, other than running them with the pros on Saturdays, depending on where they fall in the lineup, how do you grow a class? How do you get a specific class the exposure to grow?
Well, that's kind of two separate things to me, because with the women's class, first of all, that kind of going back to that I don't know if prioritizing is the word, but showcasing the women the way that they're trying to do now, I think is obviously deserved. That's something that they used to do. They used to, the premier women's class or the women's pro class. I mean, that was something that used to run alongside the pro-ams and pro classes when that was a premier Saturday or it was Sunday at one point. But at the biggest times of the weekend, women used to race. And
Okay.
So bringing that back, I mean, I like that idea, because those girls are deserving of it. They're at those top girls, Andrea Berger and Shaw and those riders. I mean, that's the pinnacle for women's racing. So I do believe that they should get that showcase, because you hope that itself can kind of grow the women's class, right?
Yep.
That makes little girls say, hey, I want to do this. I want to go do that. Now, I don't necessarily know exactly how, to help the women's class grow. I mean, I think that this is a great move. You only have so many riders that you can pick from.
Yep.
The women's racing is, smaller than the men's racing. So I think that this should help. I don't know exactly how the class structure works, but I think that you could get more women to chase the national scene if they have more classes to race. And yes, like some of those top riders, run the boys classes, but that's not necessarily what everybody's going to do. Like, everybody doesn't necessarily want to throw their hat in there if you're a female and having to race guys. So I think that that's one thing is, I know the class structure has added some, there's like another, like a 15 plus.
15 plus. Yep. 15
women's
plus.
class.
It's a women's class, and that's going to be added to the regular schedule by the sounds of it. And previous WMX champions are not eligible. So,
but everybody else is. So I think
correct.
I think that that's a perfect way, because again, Andrea and Shaw and those riders are going to race the boys classes. They don't need to run 15 plus. They don't want to, but it's a great opportunity for the younger girls to kind of have that stepping stone from the smaller classes up to the women's class. You got an in-between class now, and that gives you another class to run. So I think that there's a lot of good things that go into that. Typically, when people ask me how to grow a class, I often don't think it is even the focus of that is on a national level. I think it trickles down to the local level. And first of all, the classes need to be compatible. They got to be relatively compatible, so that a kid that runs a 250 at such and such an age at a local race can run that at a national race. That stuff's got to be compatible. But, the strength of local racing is what makes it the national racing bigger and better. And I think that, and you have all these people that are gloom and doom and Debbie Downer about, the health of ATV racing or whatever. But I think you're starting to see some of that change, because years ago, the pro class was smaller. The pro-am class was, oftentimes big, but some of them bigger classes were a little bit smaller, than maybe they are now. And the youth classes are big. Now you got those youth riders and a ton of talent coming up into the big classes, and those youth classes are now still giant. So I feel like we're seeing some of that turnover, whether, you obviously are going to have your people that are just never going to highlight the positivity, and the potential growth and all these things. But I do think that, that the strength of our sport is getting better. I do think that things are growing, but generally speaking, to grow classes, I think it starts at a local level. We need places to ride, we need places to race at home, because otherwise, if say I have a child, even where I come from in Wisconsin, there's really nowhere to race ATVs. So it's very difficult for me. If I was, if I was a dad, it would be hard for me to buy a four-wheeler and tell, my kid that, hey, we got places to race. I couldn't say that. We would have to go to the national scene. Well, typically you race local until you're doing so well that, local isn't giving you that, that natural high anymore. And then you go to the nationals. That's how it works for so many of us. So we need to grow local racing before, I think things will really take off. But yeah, I think it starts at a local level. But overall, I'm stoked with the health of ATV racing. We've seen over the last number of years that we haven't really given up any ground, and I feel like the younger riders, all the saturation of talent down there is just getting better and better as they grow, and just more people are coming in. So I feel like the future's bright.
Absolutely. And, you kind of go back to, like you were saying, with the women in the class, you've got Trower, Neum, Neum Shaw, and then you've got Berger. I don't know how much you follow the women's with the cross country and stuff, but on occasion, they'll make a video or a post and they'll highlight the women. Do you think that would benefit on the ATV WMX side? Say, hey, here's a post, and highlight some of these women to give the younger girls somebody to look up to, just like some of us guys do with Joel and Chad.
Well, I mean, of course. And obviously, like, I try to do some of that even with my posts. I mean, I try to bring some attention to the females at times. It is difficult. I mean, if we're talking about video, Gloop's the only guy, and he's got so much on his plate that, I mean, we're just asking him to do something more. But I would assume that if the class is being made more premier, which is my understanding, I think that you're going to see some more of that coverage. Just like, the 250 classes everybody likes to watch, Gloop makes sure that everyone sees the 250 races. He'll, post those videos from time to time. Same with Pro Stock, same with Pro Am. So I would assume that you'll see more of that. But I mean, typically, I think that he tries to showcase the really good racing too. So, I mean, the better the women's racing, the more we can expect to see it. I would assume that those go hand in hand.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, even I am guilty of it, and not posting a lot of the women's stuff to, kind of help their movement too. But, like you said, Gloop's got a lot going on. So, I mean, I get that too. But,
I feel like too, and just with everything that we do at Digging Deep, like, I'm trying to showcase stories, right? So when I've posted about Andrea a number of times, I mean, she comes kind of from my local area. I raced her, her dad was one of like the dominant, local A riders when I first moved up to a big bike. And so, I can tell her story a little bit. So, it's been fun to obviously follow her. She's obviously a super humble and great individual that I love to see succeed. But I mean, I wanted people to know, like, a back-to-back women's champion. I mean, there's not that many people that have done that. So, and she's kind of been dominant in the way she's done it, and her way of rising to the top has been a little bit more unorthodox. She wasn't a dominant youth rider, and then kind of, moved up through the ranks. She kind of just like, all of a sudden she just figured it out, and she was a really good rider, and then found her way to the national scene. And it was like, hey, I'm good enough that I, need to be at these races. So long story short, I feel like the better the racing, the more it'll be covered. But with Andrea specifically, I mean, I try to go out of my way to give her coverage because she clearly deserves it. And she's going to try to be back next year to win a third title. And it should be exciting to watch.
Yeah, definitely. She pulls that off. She's looking at like the female side of Chad Weenan over there. So it's, I definitely see it. But you definitely look at some of the younger girls that are coming up, and now you've got some of them that are going to be on big bikes, and they're going to make a run for it. I think she's going to have her handful this year. That's definitely not going to come easy, as it never does. But it's definitely going to be just as much fun to watch as the guys.
For sure. And I mean, you've seen, if you go back a decade plus, the Angela Moores, the Heather Birds, I mean, those riders made waves in the A classes and even higher. So it's cool for Andrea because she's still got stuff to shoot for. I mean, she can be this dominant force in the women's class. She's, like you said, there's riders coming. I mean, she'll have competition for sure, but there's dominant riders, that's like her, you can dominate in the women's side, and then you can still be a contender in a boys class, in a B class or whatever. So it's kind of like, she gets to do her thing against the girls and then see where where she's, kind of falls.
Yeah, where do I
in the
shake
boys.
down? Yeah.
Exactly in the boys classes. So I feel like that's really cool. And, but I'm glad that they have that additional class now for those other girls that, aren't champions, aren't necessarily contenders to win. I think that that's a good move for the series for those females for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Listening to, like I said, this being my first full year following aggressively with everything, learning the riders and stuff like that. You look at Thomas Brown, and the statement he's made in the sport itself is awesome. And the ability, like we were saying, to go back to him and just talk to him and stuff. What comes to your mind as far as the common third, as he referred to it as third place finish? What comes up as the favorite in your mind as his favorite third place finish? What sticks out to you?
Okay, so this is just off the cuff, but this is something that has been just a memorable ride for him. So it was Muddy Creek 2019. So last year, it was a 3-3 day for Thomas. But in the second moto specifically, Joel, Chad Chad led for a lot of the race. Joel was in second. Joel passes him. Thomas stayed right with those guys. It was a 3-rider train until there was about like 4 or 5 laps left in the moto. And that stands out to me. And I don't know if we talked about it specifically. I think we did maybe reference it when we had him on recently. Because that was the moto where they had changed some of the setup. They had, kind of taken the training wheels off, this change to PEP performance tuning, and, some of his program was changing. And that was the day where we saw Thomas really take a step. He was more in the mix at the end of last year than ever before previous to that. And that second moto ride at Muddy Creek was the ride that stands out. So, and again, we said it on the last episode, I feel like, but Thomas was, basically you could just plug him into that third place. Like he was at least going to be third no matter what. And there's a lot to say about that. I feel like you hate that. I don't know how to say this, but very similarly to when you're, outside the top 5, but inside the top 10 pro, which is where I was. It's like nobody knows. Like you could have a sixth. It was great, but nobody knows. Well, kind of the same way. I mean, you still get that podium, you still got, all the pictures, all that stuff. You still get bonuses, all of that, everything that goes along with the podium, but you don't necessarily get that coverage that the first 2 or the winner gets. But
the exposure. Exactly.
But for Thomas to be over 50 times, just plugged into that third place, like he's expected to be there. I mean, I feel like it's going to be weird when he's gone because he just was the third guy. And then, there's so many, so that's the one that stands out. And then there was so many battles in the years previous between him and Jeffrey. It was Thomas and Jeffrey duking it out in every single moto for that top 3 spot. And I'm going to miss those battles between those two guys because there was a lot of great racing going on for that final spot on the podium between Thomas and Jeffrey for so many years.
Yeah, absolutely. I've watched videos and from back in the day, and I think you're right. I think that's the one that stuck out to me. And I remember you talking about it in the last episode, and I was like, I'm going to go, that's going to be Cody's answer. Like you were saying, he was working with getting things dialed in, and I'm driving through the middle of Ohio on the way to the banquet. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I got to pull over and write this question down because I think that's going to go. So
yeah.
Definitely going to be a different podium view with Thomas being, stepping into the picture.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. I mean, I feel like, I look at some riders that could take some steps to be. I mean, obviously we know that Bryce is gonna contend for podium spots on the regular, but guys like Logan Stanfield, who's just, he's so consistent and he just shows up on race day. I mean, that's how he was in his rookie season as a pro. Guys like that, I feel like could end up being, kind of filling that role of the guy who's just a staple to be maybe not necessarily a podium spot because there's so many good kids coming up, but a top 5 rider. Like, you could tell me that Logan finishes 5th in points next year, and I don't know that I'd necessarily be surprised solely based on, he's going to be in the mix in that kind of, 5th, 6th, 7th or whatever every single weekend. And that's only based on him taking one step. Say he takes a giant step. Guys like Alan Myers too, if he just, can figure out some things with this program to make sure he's consistent, that's another guy. I mean, there's guys, there's younger kids that I feel like if they just take the model of Thomas, and Thomas did it for a lot of years, and he wasn't necessarily this guy at the very beginning. But if that consistency is what these kids need to figure out, and as soon as that, I mean, you could have kind of your next Thomas Brown type molded rider kind of waiting in the wing.
Yeah, you can sprint a couple times, but a couple sprints isn't going to get you a marathon win. So
the thing with Thomas too is it doesn't matter if he started 1st or he started 10th. He was still going to
find his way up there.
He's going to find his way up there. So it's pretty impressive. We'll get right back to the show, but now a word from our sponsors. And thank you for listening to these ads. Without these great companies, none of this would be possible. Show your support for the people who support us. Before Digging Deep was even a reality, back when it was just an idea, CST Tires already believed in us, which is fitting because no one believes in their tires more than I do. Our title sponsor, CST Tires, and their Pulse MXR tires continue to hook every rider strong enough and willing to grab a handful of throttle after mounting them on their ride. Used by Thomas Brown to win races and clinch a 3rd straight Quad Cross of Nations title, Nick Gennusa when he grabbed his first career Pro Class podium, and myself, Cody Janssen, as I rode my Pulse MXR fronts and white label soft compound rears to back-to-back national championships in the Junior 25 Plus class. The Pulse MXR tire, available in soft and standard compounds, offers the highest level of traction, most predictable cornering, and superior wear characteristics when compared to the competition. Visit CSTTires.com to join the CST takeover today, or prepare to be beat by someone who did. CST Tires, where passion meets the ground.
Anybody that I've gotten to try them, I've heard nothing but positive things back.
We're proud to be Team Blue Crew here at the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. Why choose Yamaha? Look no further than Chad Wienen's 7 championships in the past 9 seasons aboard his Yamaha YFZ 450R. Not to mention, Yamaha is the leading OEM supporter of ATV racing, and their support of this podcast proves it. For the 2020 ATVMX season, Yamaha's Blue Crew Racer Support Program will offer payout and prize opportunities, including a chance to win a brand new YFZ 450R. For more information, head to YamahaOutdoors.com and follow them on social media at Yamaha Outdoors today. All hail Blue Crew, the #1 OEM supporter of ATV racing. For over 150 years, Valvoline has led the charge by being dedicated to constant improvement and innovation across all disciplines of racing. Valvoline has sponsored some of the greatest names in motorsports, and for the better part of a decade, I've been fortunate enough to be part of the historically great Team Valvoline. From my commuting vehicles to small engines, race quads, and everything in between, I trust nothing but Valvoline in all of my equipment. I've experienced increased function and durability, as well as a longer life expectancy thanks to Valvoline's array of products and lubricants. Since 1866, Valvoline has been focused on bettering your experience, whether on road, on track, and everywhere in between. Upgrade to Valvoline today and check them out at valvoline.com. SSI Decals is a name synonymous with ATV racing, synonymous with big-time success, and absolutely synonymous with the best-looking decals around. An offshoot of their parent company that was established in 1947, SSI first took shape from owner Ian Harris's passion for ATVs. With what started as just making numbers and decals for riders like Chad Wienen, the company quickly took off, and today you couldn't imagine ATV motocross without SSI decals. The graphics maker and designer now supports all the top teams in ATV motocross, as well as teams and riders racing GNCC, Work Series, pro motocross and supercross, Canadian pro motocross, short course off-road trucks, UTVs, snowcross, and oh yeah, 6-time NHRA world champion Clay Milliken. No project is too big or too small for SSI decals, making your identity stick with championship level graphics. Head over to SSIDecals.com today and then maybe call the doctor because things are about to get sick. The Digging Deep ATVMX podcast is brought to you in part by DID Racing Chain and their 520 ATV2 chain. This patented X-ring chain boasts a steel alloy construction for reduced weight, increased strength, and a longer overall chain life, making it the optimal ATV racing chain. Pick up an ATV2 chain today at your local dealer or wherever DID chains are sold. Don't forget about their motocross, off-road, and street bike chains as well. Wherever you go, go with DID.
Hello listeners, this is Chad Wienen, AMA ATV Pro National Champion, an owner of Wienen Motorsports and proud partner of Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. The two of us share a strong passion for ATVMX. Owning my own team gives us the ability to handpick the best products on the market for our racing program. With consistent testing, research, and development, we are confident that when choosing the products we believe in, our customers will be satisfied in building their own race program as well. We race what we sell. With brands like Fox Shocks, Walsh Racecraft, SSI Decals, Wrath Racing, and Hinson Racing, just to mention a few, go to check out WienenMotorsports.com to see the full lineup. Enter discount promo code DIGDEEP at checkout. Enough talking already. Get out and get some fresh air and go ride. Hope to see you at the track soon.
We are proud to be partnered with Numira Technologies. Since 2001, Numira has led the charge in the ATV and side-by-side market, covering more applications than anyone else in the industry. Numira's advanced piston technology uses a NASA-exclusive aluminum alloy that helps to reduce expansion rates, that allows for tighter tolerances and leads to higher overall engine performance for your machine. For more information about Numira's wide offerings of pistons, rings, gaskets, and industry-leading top-end repair kits, visit your local dealer or online at www.numira.com. Numira Technologies, pistons with an attitude. We are pleased to be partnered with Bronco ATV and UTV components. Bronco has been an industry leader in replacement hard parts and accessories for all makes and models for over 15 years. With a catalog that includes a full line of electrical components, engine internals like rods and cylinders, all the way down to suspension parts and bearing kits. Bronco is your hard part source for whatever you need for whatever you ride. Available exclusively through distributors around the world. Visit your local dealer or online at broncoatv.com. The Digging Deep ATV MX podcast is also sponsored by DP Brakes, a longtime supporter of ATV racing and the world leader in sintered brake technology. DP has been dominating the ATV world for decades by supporting the best four-wheeled racers on the planet. 2020 is no different, with an impressive lineup including Joel Hetrick and Phoenix Racing Honda team, Cody Janssen and his Junior 25+ National Championship, Baldwin Motorsports, Nick Gennusa, Wesley Wolf, and much more in the ATV motocross. In GNCC Racing, DP has 16 of the top 17 pros heading into 2020. This includes the champ Walker Fowler, Bryson Neal, Chris Borich, Cole Richardson, Jared McClure, Adam McGill, and more. These riders continue to appreciate the high performance and impressive durability that their DP brakes have to offer, products that ultimately help place them on the top of the podium. Available at www.dp-brakes.com. Purchase at your local dealer or message us for the contact info today. What are you waiting for? Join the best ATV riders in the world on DP Brakes. Forworks Carbon's innovative lightweight products include top-notch seat covers, carbon fiber, and plastic hoods, gas tank covers, exhaust shields, shock guards, and much more. Whether you have an ATV, UTV, or snowmobile, Forworks has the goodies that will improve your ride and make you salivate. We trust Forworks for increased function and a sexier look, and you should too. Forworks Carbon, always working hard to bring high quality and innovative parts to the market. Check them out today at fwcarbon.com.
Just like the sport of ATV motocross as a whole, our Digging Deep community is brought together by the love for racing that we all share. Our sport is compiled of many great people, and leading that charge is the Launderville family at Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply. This racing-owned family business is a steel and concrete supplier serving the entire United States. Launderville Steel is a full-service steel supplier of new and surplus steel, aluminum, and stainless steel products headlined by their 4130 chromoly tubing and plate used in the building of chassis for ATVs and UTVs, off-road truck racing, late model dirt and pro tractor pulling series, drag racing, and more. Launderville Steel loves their racing just as much as we do, but don't forget about their concrete division as well. With over 25 years of experience, the concrete division can supply everything you need to complete your next business or personal project. Their central Midwest location enables LSE to easily serve customers across the United States. For a quote, additional info, answers to more of your questions, or to talk a little racing, head over to laundervillesteel.com or give them a call today. We are proud to be partnered with yet another racer-owned company. Thank you, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply. We are proud to be partnered with Gripped Gloves. Gripped is an ATV rider-owned and operated brand with the rider in mind and the goal of keeping costs affordable. The Michigan-based family operation recognizes riders' desire to showcase their identity. Owner David Payne's love for eccentric colorways and crazy patterns shows in his product, something not often found in the work of big manufacturers. Here to push stereotypes and limitations, Grip's drive is to produce a glove with cool colors and designs that won't break the bank. With comfort and quality as key motivators, the family affair is constantly working on the next more innovative and improved glove. Get a grip on life, join the Gripped movement, because no one wants a bland glove. Check them out today at grippedgloves.com, that's G-R-I-P-T gloves.com, and use discount code DIGGINGDEEP10 to save at checkout. If you were to guess, on average, how many days people in the U.S. have to wait to see a doctor, what would you say? Americans have to wait around 29 days to see a doctor in major U.S. cities. And if you're dealing with a condition like erectile dysfunction, you want treatment ASAP. That's why our friends at Roman have spent years building a digital platform that can connect you with a licensed doctor in your state, all from the comfort of your home. Roman makes it convenient to get the treatment you need on your schedule. Just grab your phone or computer, complete a free online visit, and you'll hear back from a U.S. licensed physician within 24 hours. If the doctor decides that treatment is right for you, Roman's Pharmacy can ship your medication to you with free 2-day shipping. You also get free unlimited follow-ups with your doctor anytime you have questions or want to adjust your treatment plan. With Roman, there are no commitments and you can cancel anytime. So if you're struggling with ED, go to getroman.com/digging for your free online visit and free 2-day shipping. That's getroman.com/digging for your free online visit and free 2-day shipping. We are also proud of our partnership with Factory 43. Factory 43 was born in 2007, making Nerf bars for the Suzuki LTR, Honda TRX 450R, and Yamaha's YFZ 450. The brand soon added bumpers and grab bars, and for years now has offered parts for all sport quads. The racer-owned company strives to offer a quality product that installs easy, looks good, and holds up over time. For 2020, Factory 43 is the aluminum parts choice of the Phoenix Racing Team, providing riders like Joel Hetrick, Jeffrey Rastrelli, Chris Borich, and Grayson Eller with the motocross and cross-country versions of their Evo Nerf bar and MX-style front bumpers. Head over to factory43atv.com to see their full line of products. Thanks to Factory 43. We are excited to dig deep with the support of Bikes, Trikes, and Quads, LLC. Celebrating their 10-year anniversary this May, the company was started by former racers selling three-wheeler parts out of a barn in upstate New York. Through hard work, accompanied by offering great service to their customers, BTQ LLC now has over 40,000 new and used parts in stock. But they haven't forgotten their roots, still offering used OEM parts for three-wheelers, dirt bikes, ATVs, and side-by-sides. Parts are in stock and ready to ship with delivery within 3 days, including free shipping on orders over $50. Use discount code ATVMX at www.btqllc.com for $10 off orders of $50 or more. We're grateful to have Bikes, Trikes, and Quads LLC digging deep with us. Support our industry's grassroots businesses. Thank you, BTQ LLC. The Decker Training Facility at County Line MX is now open. This premier motocross training compound is located in beautiful Fountain, Florida, about a 40-minute drive from Panama City Beach. Their rapidly growing facility consists of a pro-level national track, amateur and youth tracks, woods loop, and mountain bike trails. Everything you need to train comfortably all winter long is available on site, including private cabins, a full gym, RV hookups, bathhouses, garage, dump station, wash bays, and more. With accommodations for riders across the country and around the world, the Decker Training Facility will help you become the best rider you can be. Sign up for a group training session or a private lesson with nationally ranked pros. Train tougher, smarter and harder this offseason at one of Florida's most luxurious facilities. For more information, go to deckertrainingfacility.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram. Decker Training Facility, your elite training experience.
We are proud to be partnered with Avocado Green Mattresses. We all know that sleep and rest are an important part of any athlete's routine. Avocado's line of natural mattresses and pillows provide exactly the support you need to ensure you perform at your best while doing the best for the planet. The Avocado mattress offers zoned back support with an internal support unit, meaning whether you are recovering from a hard day of riding or relaxing on a Sunday morning, you will be experiencing next level comfort. You can rest in peace knowing the components in your mattress and pillow are non-toxic, natural, and sustainably sourced. And getting your Avocado Green mattress could not be any easier. They offer a 100-night sleep trial, free shipping and return pickups, and a 25-year warranty. And if that wasn't enough, rest assured knowing they have 5-star ratings by verified customers, including some of the Digging Deep staff. Step up your sleep game by visiting avocadomattress.com.
Thanks for listening, and remember to support our partners. Now back to the show.
Yeah, and like you're saying with the new riders coming up and the big changes and everything, do you think there's going to be any rider changes, as far as changing teams, changing setups? Do you see any of the top more, riders in the pro ranks making changes that's going to benefit them?
Well, I mean, we know about obviously, Joel and Phoenix switching to Yamaha. So that in itself is going to be a major, major talking point, major something to focus on, whatever that is, because for the first time in so long, it's not just Joel and Chad on the program that they've always been on, lining up for just another chapter of this book that they've written over the last decade, or at least, in recent, 5-6 years that their programs have just been identical. So that's going to be exciting to see something a little different there. The next thing I'm looking at is with Bryce, and you want to see how close he can be with those, top two. He can run those lap times. It's just, can he always be that guy? Because it's everything. It's your starts. It's everything. I mean, those guys, you have to get a good start to contend. So it's going to be interesting for me to see the step that he takes, as we kind of trickle down. I mean, seeing Max Lindquist is a major focus of mine too, because I feel like, again, I wanted him to be able to run pro at the end of the season, because I think he could have got kind of plugged right into that, 6th, 7th kind of place. I think that it would have been a good battle. I mean, that's a guy that I'm going to really like to focus on. We haven't mentioned Brandon Hogue yet, and that's a guy that at the beginning of the season, I mean, it looked like he could win a race. It looked like he was going to be a podium guy for sure. I mean, we saw him get a podium at Muddy Creek, but I feel like that's a guy. Now, I've heard rumors, not of Brandon Hogue, but of other riders maybe taking, one of the Phoenix spots. But I think that was contingent on Jeffrey not coming back. And I was told that spot for Jeffrey was basically there if you wanted it. And I mean, reading between the lines, it looks like Jeffrey's going to go racing. And that's what it seems like to me. And if that's the case, then we know it's going to be on Phoenix, and we know it's going to be on a Yamaha. So I don't think that you're going to see any major changes at the very top. And Brandon communicated to me just recently that, his program is going to stay the same. I know that there was people talking about, I saw some rumors about, Brandon Hogue changing his program or whatever, but I know that his plan right now is that he's healthy, he's healed up, he's in training mode now, he's in, preparation mode. He's going to be with, TDR again, and, they're going to come out swinging. So I hope that we can see the Brandon Hogue that we saw at the beginning of the year that was winning heat races and, at Daytona, he said he was going to win. That was his belief. That was his goal. I want to see that Brandon Hogan. I think we will. I mean, he's so headstrong. He's so motivated. My only concern, not this last season, but the season before, was he's such a believer in himself. I was just worried that he was going to get hurt pushing it too hard, and he didn't.
Right.
This last season, he just got bit by a fluke deal there where he clipped his tire. But I think Brandon's going to be strong for one, and that's the guy that, you know, I think that could really mix things up and maybe isn't on everybody's radar right this second. I don't think that we're going to see any major changes to any guys at the top or whatever, but you know, I think that that doesn't mean the pro class isn't going to be crazy interesting, because it is. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, like you had just said, you know, Hogue, he came to a local race, and it was a moto, and he came with Brogan. And so it was the cool to see two of them, you know, show up to a local race. And for the big moto that it was, everybody wanted their hands, you know, hey, what can we do? Let's see how we stack up with them. And he went out there and he said, you know, he goes, it was nice to just have fun and not push myself so hard and still, you know, go out and do well. Granted, he didn't win, Blair Miller. He ended up beating up on him pretty good and having some good battles. So that was cool to see, you know, local riders at that time, you know, finding out where they stacked up. And I'm like, who's Blair Miller, you know? And like I said, that was just when I started getting into things, and to watch a local rider compete with some of these pros saying, okay, we got something there, you know, going on here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's
what having fun.
That's what it's all about. I feel like, at least where I'm from, because again, I talked about kind of where ATV racing is at in Wisconsin, but when I was younger, I remember Doug Gus showing up for local races, and I mean, it was like God was there.
Starstruck.
I mean, honestly. And then, you know, a few years later, and you know, I think we talked about it on the last episode where, you know, we were all racing, you know, the A class or whatever before we were 16. You know, I think I was probably 13 or 14, and now I'm lining up against Gus at a local race. And it was like, man, yeah, I got 5 of this dude's posters on my walls, and now I'm trying to race them at a local race. But that's what it's all about. I mean, it's really cool to see you know, those big name riders show up at local races and have fun. And I mean, that's what it's all about. So for everybody, I mean, this sport is just about having fun. That's what it's all about. But it's tough when you're at the pro level, because there's just so much pressure. Probably the pressure for most people is put on by themselves. I mean, I've been there, where it's just sometimes it's hard to, you know, to keep the focus on, you know, making sure that you're having fun, because you put so much into it. You put so much pressure on yourself, and you feel that pressure from all your supporters as well. So for everybody, I mean, I feel like you just want to kind of keep the fun in it. And, you know, I even in the years since, in the 3 seasons since I walked away from the pro class and came back and raced, you know, kind of 25 plus in the age classes, I fell in love with it. I found the fun again. And I thought to myself, man, if I could go back in time and put an emphasis on the fun while I was racing the pro class, I would have been more successful, because, you know, when you're having fun, that's when you're going to be the most successful, probably in anything in life, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. You're most relaxed and things come natural.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the way it is.
Again, this is a hobby for 99% of us. A hobby that we absolutely love. Our life revolves around it. I mean, I've dedicated my whole life to this thing, but it's still a hobby. So you gotta make sure it's still enjoyable. You gotta make sure it's still fun.
Yeah, definitely. So, like, I was at a local race and kind of listening to, in between races, I was listening to a podcast, and they did a rundown, and it was 10 random questions, and you just fire off the answers as fast as possible.
Rapid fire.
How do you think other guests would respond to that? And, you know, something that, you know, not even race related questions, you know, that would kind of be the lighter side. Do you think that'd be a hit?
For Digging Deep?
Yes.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I've often thought about stuff like this, which sometimes I try to simulate that with some of the listener questions sometimes. But, preparing for guests is such a time consuming thing that sometimes I get to the point where it's like, man, I can't dedicate any more time to this. I've been working on, my pre-episode prep for a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yes, I do think it's a hit. I know that they do it on some of the moto podcasts and stuff, which I listen to them all. So, I mean, they motivate a lot of what we do. But those segments on other shows, they have a third party that supplies the questions. And that's what if I had, if you had somebody like you, or maybe you have it as a kid, kind of carouseling where you change the person that's supplying the questions every week, because then maybe gets a little bit different spin, for every episode. But if that's something that people want to do, I guess, want to participate in, I'm all for it.
I think it'd be a perfect outro. You get done with your conversation and then you hit them with the buzzer for the speed round, and
I remember Zach Osborne's podcast, and that's exactly how they ended it. It was about life. It was about life questions. He only did 10 episodes, but it was a great way. You kind of piece together somebody's persona or personality or whatever, character, all those things, when you kind of ask them about other things, right? Like oftentimes I feel like I wish I could have a football podcast, because nobody would listen to it, because I'm not a football personality, but I got a lot of football things to say. It's the same thing. Like, ask me about, I want to know, we're all fans of Chad Wienen or Joel Hetrick or these guys. So you kind of want to know, everything about what they believe, right? So I'm all for it. I would just need people like you to sign up to supply the 10 questions every episod.
Deal. I'm in. I think it'd be huge. Just and like I said, the questions not even being everything about ATV racing, and just
quirky stuff even. Yep. I'm all for it. So maybe we'll have to expand on that for episodes going forward.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's and then with that being said, I think my next question would be, who has been your favorite guest since the
Oh, that's tough.
Because you've had a good array of guests and whether it be company representatives or riders or industry moguls, that type of deal.
Yeah. I mean, it is hard, because there's so many. And first of all, as a host or somebody who kind of runs Digging Deep, I mean, I'm always so appreciative on everybody's time. I'm trying to give you kind of the corporate answer, but it's time consuming, to ask somebody for, for a half hour, an hour, whatever. Like, everybody's time is valuable. I guess, from the very beginning, I mean, I'm partial to Chad, because Chad, and I've said it on other things, other episodes we've done and write-ups I've done, Chad started this whole thing. I didn't have necessarily a long-term plan. It was just, hey, this idea of a podcast started to come together, and I basically made it because I wanted to tell Chad's story. I thought it was good enough to tell, and I thought not enough people knew the story going back 15, 20 years. So that's how it started. So I'm partial to Chad. And that very first episode, I mean, he gave us 2 hours of his time. And we had no track record. We had no episodes. We had
nothing to go off of.
It was just Chad giving me his time. Now, yes, Chad and I raced against each other, or whatever. We lined up against each other, all these things. But when Chad was just going pro, I was a little boy. So he was my hero. So right. I'm partial to Chad, especially because he put us on the map with that very first episode. But I'm also partial to, Gary Denton, who I knew nothing about as a person. I just knew, he's the 8-time champ. And I loved that episode we did with Gary. It was so successful. and he was just such an awesome dude. I feel like he treated me like a friend right away, which was cool. It was great to hear his story. I was super pumped to expose it to the guys that are my age or excuse me, or younger, who didn't know the Gary Denton story. It was cool to kind of get him that exposure. Like I said before, Doug Gust coming from Wisconsin, so he's a Wisconsin native, and obviously, I mean, he's one of the greatest ATV racers ever. I had a blast talking to him, but then I'm also partial to the guys like Dustin Wimmer and Josh Creamer, the guys of that era, of the late kind of 2000s, kind of the ending of that decade, because that was the heyday of ATV motocross, and to have those guys from that, and same with Chad's from that same era. He's just still around, but those guys, that was when ATV racing was so cool. That was like the richest era, and I feel like I hold all those riders kind of to a high standard. So I feel like having those guys on was fun, but then I mean, I don't know, it's just so hard for me because I got so many that I like. I mean, Dustin Nelson was awesome because, again, he was a supercross, motocross guy, then switched to quads. It was great to have him. Our biggest episodes to date were the pulp inspired MX versus ATV stuff, and having Heath Harrison on, who's again, a supercross motocross guy. It was really cool to have him on. I mean, he fit right in our wheelhouse and made for great content. So much of it has been awesome. It's hard to pick just one guest, but with every episode, we try to do things a little differently. And I know we got some big plans for some past legends coming on, in upcoming episodes here. So I look forward to that, but very difficult to just stake down one guy as my favorite guest.
Yeah, definitely. And shout out to Heath for this weekend too. He looked like he had a good weekend at Minios. So
yeah, it did.
Shout out to him for that. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that kind of gives an idea as far as like you're saying, for going back in time to get a refresh on riders and where they came from, because like I said, me being new, I didn't know some of these riders. So to go back and be able to listen to these podcasts again and find out, okay, Gust, Kramer, I got to put these two together because it's a good refresh to learn these riders from back in the day.
Well, and I feel like I like to feel like it helps put like perspective sometimes on things that are going on now. I mean, I like to think of, I mean, it's hard to do, but you like to think of, okay, like everybody loved such and such a rider, Doug Gust. Well, who's like the Doug Gust now? Or whatever. Who's the Josh Creamer now, like a decade later? I like to think about it that way because, I mean, it's just, I don't know. That's my heyday. Those were like my impressionable years back then, 10 years ago or whatever. So I feel like in our sport, so much even smaller than motocross, two-wheeled motocross, there's not like there's not an archive just of past history. So sometimes I try to fill that void, right? Like I feel like I try to shed some light on, racing of the past. And it's cool because you can post a picture from 20 years ago and then you have 50 people that comment on it. And of all those people that comment, there's people dropping knowledge. And it's like, I'm even learning things. And then obviously I know people that are liking and seeing the post, sharing the posts, are learning things too. So, I really enjoy kind of showcasing, the stuff from the past, but that's like an off-season only thing because it's too crazy in season. So that's why over the next couple of months, I look forward to getting on some of the old guys, the Shane Hitts, the Tim Fars. Hopefully we can finish up our deal with Natalie and get him back on. So a lot of those guys will make for good listens, and we got that stuff coming up. So we'll just continue to kind of fill the void of some ATV history. Trying to be the historian of the sport over here or something.
Right. Yeah. It just come to mind when you refer to, the riders of the past and stuff and learning, these riders. I had to legitimately stop and look up the video of Thomas Brown doing the front flip because I had never heard of that before. And I'm like, there's no way. Like, I need to see this. And I found the video and I had to post it. I posted it. I was like,
I saw that.
you're kidding me. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm a believer.
And it's cool. It's cool because it's like one of those legendary things. I mean, you see it in other sports where just some happening takes on, like, again, I'm a football guy. So you think of the Dan Marino fake spike, like these random things take on this legendary story, this persona of their own. And it's like, that's what happened with Thomas, at least for ATV people, because he only got a handful of wins in his career, but somehow a win came on the day that he front flipped, stayed on the quad and kept going. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. I think I think I agree with him too. He had a co-rider.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. You couldn't credit it to anything else.
Yeah, you definitely, you kind of look back at it and be like, a win is great, but man, he goes, I'm glad I was riding double, because that he says if it was any other day,
I was standing in the tower there, and I still to this day I remember the feeling like I couldn't believe my eyes that had happened. It was amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Yeah, no, that's I think that pretty much answers what I was thinking as far as question wise and
awesome
stuff. So it's definitely a good insight.
Well, and this is cool because I feel like you have things that you think about round by round or leading up into the season. I mean, you're a guy that that looks at all the posts just like so many of us do. So I feel like that. This was a blast. And I feel like that this is something that we could do going forward. I mean, if you just got to keep filling those notebook pages with questions, content, whatever. And we'll have to do this going forward, especially as 2021, kind of comes up on us. I'm sure it'll be here before we know it. Yeah,
definitely. And, like when we first started talking back earlier towards Daytona, we were doing bold predictions and whatnot. And
yeah,
make a stab right now. I'm going to say Max Lindquist 5th place overall.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would make him Rookie of the Year.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So if that's your top 5, if that's your 5th place guy, okay. So,
oh boy.
So Chad and Joel in some way are 1 and 2. I'm assuming that's where you have it. Okay. Yep. So who's 3rd?
Oh boy. I think we're gonna see Brandon Hogue come out strong, and it's gonna be a battle between 3rd and 4th with Brandon Hogue.
Really? Okay. And I love it. I mean, I'm obviously, Brandon spent a lot of years or a lot of time living with us. So I'm a big Brandon Hogue fan. But the thing with Bryce, and I've said this before, the thing with Bryce that makes it very hard to bet against him is his starts are so good, for one, and his bike riding for Baldwin, that quad is as good as anybody's.
Yep.
So he's got some advantages that are going to be hard for anybody else to overcome. But I mean, again, it's hard to bet against Brandon, I feel like, too, at times, because if he can just be consistent and not have any bad things happen, I mean, his willpower, his fitness, his want to is as high as anybody, I feel like. So it'll be really fun to watch.
Well, and you look at the battle that Bryson and Hogue had at is it Sunset? I mean, you look at that and you know what? This is the way it's going to be. Battle it out.
And it was a shame when Brandon got hurt. I mean, for obvious reasons, but it was a shame as fans, because basically him and Bryce were at they were tied or whatever. They were very close going into those last few races. And, Brandon was so strong at the beginning of the year, and he was like in this lull. So you had to figure he was going to figure it out going forward, you assume. And then Bryce was, not on a hot streak. He finished 4th at Daytona. He cooled off a little bit, but then he was red hot down the stretch. I was really, really looking forward to seeing how that was going to shake out, because it was going to be a battle. I mean, both of those guys are 2 guys that are not going to give up. And,
no, they're going to push it.
And Bryce too. I mean, he's gotten with the program with Dom over there, and his fitness has become a strength too. And I think as he matures, it's going to only become more of a strength. So, Man, I feel like it's bold. Did you say so? Brandon's going to be third? Is that what you said?
I think it's going to be a toss up between Bryce
Okay.
and third and
Okay.
fourth. That I think that could go either way.
Okay.
I see Brandon being that consistent factor, like you said.
Yep.
It just, where is it going to shake out in the end?
It's gonna be very interesting to watch. And we did most improved pro. We gave away that award at the banquet. Wes got it, which I was stoked about. So if I had to put you on the spot and ask you who the most improved pro for next year would be, who would you go with? In points, kind of outstanding. I mean, because Brandon didn't finish in points like that's kind of the metric that we based it on this past year, and the eye test. But Brandon is going to go from outside the top 10 to he's going to skyrocket, presumably. So that kind of outstanding. But based on on-track ability and what we saw from these guys, who's going to take a next step?
Oh boy,
Because I think Stanfield has an argument to make there, and I think Allen too. I mean, he took a major step. So, and I said this before. Maybe I should articulate it again. I mean, there was two guys basically who clearly bettered themselves from last year to this year, and Allen was the favorite for it all year, and the wheels kind of just fell off at the end of the year when he had some heartache and some stuff happen. But man, Allen too, like all he has to do is ride like he rode this year at times, and he's a top 5 guy. So I feel like if that's where you're going down the right road.
Yep, I was definitely leaning towards Allen myself. I see him 6 spot right tight with Max. I think that's going to be the other battle for that too. And there's going to be so many battles to watch on the track this year. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be tight. First through 8th. I think it's going to be tough.
Yeah, because I mean, so now you've kind of slated everybody up to the top 7, and I mean the long time 6th place finisher and finished higher than that in other races, but Wesley Wolf is always there, so that's another guy that's going to be in that mix. I feel like, especially coming into 2020, I said that Cody Ford was going to be my most improved pro. That was my prediction. And, he had to deal with some stuff, some injuries and other things, other hurdles this year. But that's a guy I feel like could come in again as a favorite because, 13th or 12th or whatever he finished in points, he's better than that. So that's another guy that's going to be in the running, next year for most improved pro.
Yeah, and you look at the points, we haven't mentioned him yet, but Mr. Turkey Derby himself, Nick Gennusa.
There you go. So we already heard from him on the show, but that's a guy. So he's a top 5 staple. Like in this year, he had his back more up against the wall than ever before. He had to, again, down the stretch, I don't even know how much faith he had. And down the stretch, he pulls it off, gets back into the top 5, has been 4th or 5th in every championship he's ever been in the pro class, which is amazing. So he's going to be in contention. And now with, we heard from him, but with this track that he has, he's really thinking, and I think we saw it down the stretch of the season, but he's thinking he's going to take a major step forward. And if you go 4th or 5th and take a step, that means you're contending for that, that top 3 podium spot. So, and he's consistent as could be. So maybe he's the Thomas Brown fill-in,
I could see that for sure. Like you said, the second half of the season, you could definitely see a change in him. You could definitely see some drive, and from my point of view as a photographer, I like to what I call get inside the helmet, get a close-up shot, look at the goggles, get a face shot, and you can see the focus in some of these guys, the determination. And then there's days where you're like, man, he looks tired. Who's gonna shake things up? And Nick had the most consistent face all year, and I think that's lays the groundwork for why he finishes the way he does so consistently, so regularly. So this coming year, he takes a step forward and pushes it like he's going to. Like I know he will. It's going to be interesting to where things shake out. Top 10 this year is going to be one to remember.
Yeah, it's going to be gnarly for sure. Well, Josh, this is like I said before, this has been an absolute blast. So we're gonna have to have you fill some more notebook pages, and we'll do this again, especially as we get closer to 2021. So
Yeah,
save up all that off-season content, and we'll have to do this in the months going forward. It'd be a lot of fun.
absolutely. I appreciate you, reaching out and making this happen.
Awesome, Josh. Well, thanks so much again for your time, and I look forward to getting you back on soon. That's PH3 Photos Josh Cline, brought to you by DID Racing Chain and the 520 ATV2 X-Ring Chain. Thanks, pal.
No problem. Thank you.
Good conversation, right? Josh adores our sport, and he really appreciates the way our ATV family has welcomed him with open arms. So we're happy to bring him on. But when we were talking about Thomas's front flip and comparing it to other iconic moments in sports, I so badly wanted to bring up my guy, Aaron Rodgers, in the Motown Miracle Hail Mary play against his Detroit Lions that coincidentally took place exactly 5 years ago today, but I didn't because I'm an honorable host like that. Now, I want to get right into our third and final guest because this may be the best segment of the night. All right, guys, our final guest tonight is a guy who seems like he's going to be a major player in the coming years at the top level of ATV motocross. He was battling at the front of Pro-Am and dominating Pro Mod when his season came to an early end due to injury last season. Brought to you by Manscaped and their Lawnmower 3.0 electric trimmer. Go to manscaped.com to get 20% off plus free shipping by using Digging Deep 20 at checkout. It's Mr. Zack Decker. What's up, Zach? Thanks for coming on. Stoked to talk to you finally.
What's going on? Yeah, I'm stoked to be on the show, so thank you for putting me on here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're stoked to have you. We were planning to have you on like literally when you got hurt earlier this season. We had communicated about it like the weekend prior. So that obviously threw a wrench into things, but you're here now. I guess start off by telling us how you're feeling and how's the body healing up?
So I'm feeling good. I just got released from the hospital about a week and a half ago.
Okay.
But man, it's just been a long road. So yeah, I broke my wrist the first time and we healed up from that. And then the second time, this time has just been like 8 months of, it hasn't been healing right. So like back and forth from the hospital and trying to get things right, switching up diets, like trying everything we can do to get this thing, healed. Trying to get it healed before the end of race season, but that didn't work out too well. So yeah, we just got released a week and a half ago. Everything's feeling okay now. Whipped out the stalker a little bit, so been riding that. That's a lot of fun.
Okay.
So just kind of getting the feel of things. But yeah, It's starting to feel more like my wrist.
Awesome. Yeah. I didn't know, obviously everything that was going on behind the scenes with kind of some complications and stuff. I thought that was probably the wrist that you had broken before, but I also assumed that it probably wasn't just a typical heel because you would have been back by the end of the season had it been typical. So, I feel like sometimes, the universe or whatever works itself out where maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. So maybe this way you have, some more time to heal and you're just going to come back, better than ever, more prepared, or however you want to say it. You didn't rush the process. So at least that's not something that you have to worry about as you kind of ramp up for 2021.
Right. Exactly. And like you said, like everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, for sure. It's a shame you got injured for obvious reasons, but you were on a tear. You had one. You come out, you win the opening moto of Pro-Am. You went on to win 2 of the first 6 Pro-Am motos, the 6 that you competed in. You ended up being the only rider to beat your buddy Max Lindquist in Pro-Am, albeit it was in some first motos, but there was some great battles there, some epic battles. Aonia Pass obviously comes to mind. So take me through what it was like to be one of the 2 16-year-olds dominating Pro-Am in your first years on big bikes, because it's pretty unprecedented. We heard from Max, kind of during that time period, so I want to hear from you too. It's pretty impressive to step off the little bikes, get on the big bikes, and be at the front of Pro-Am right away.
Yeah, honestly, it was so much fun. But coming from the little bikes and going to the big bikes, I mean, it was a big step. You know, you have your people in your corner saying, you know, no, you shouldn't do it. And then you have your other people, you know, saying, yeah, go for it. So, you know, it was like kind of had to play it by ear and how I felt on the bike. But getting on the big bikes, I felt almost a lot more comfortable just right off the get-go. So, you know, we were putting in time with my motor mechanic, and we were just trying to dial in the bikes, and I felt like we were ready to go pro-am, and so we made that move. And this year we came out to Iona Pass, and you know, I really didn't know what to expect. I was honestly just hoping to get on the box, just top 3. That's what I was hoping for. And the first moto, man, Max and I battled it out that weekend. Like, I've never had a battle like that in my entire life. It was crazy. We passed each other, I think, six times in one moto.
Yeah, that was the race of the weekend. Sorry? Yeah, one lap. That was the race of the weekend. Everybody was talking about it. I remember when the weekend got over, like, that was the class that everybody was talking about. We got this little glimpse of the battle, and then we only saw it for, you know, ended up being for 3 races. But, you know, you came out at the beginning of the season. You came out in that first moto. You're sprinting away, and, man, it looked like you had been on that quad for forever. You know, it just looked like it was like, you know, I watched you ride, and it was like, yeah, I mean, no shit, he's up front. You know what I mean? Like, it just didn't come as a surprise. But when there's people that are like, hey, pump the brakes, you know, maybe don't go to Pro-Am right away, or don't have big expectations, that's all because, I mean, we've never seen it before. When's the last time that you saw somebody, you know, previous to this move up to Pro-Am, you know, right away at 16 years old, and you're right at the front? Like, it doesn't happen. But I think more than anything, what we're seeing is that you and Max are just different. You're cut from a different cloth, and that's why you know, I'll be on record saying that you're one of the next big things in the sport, because, you know, you came out of the gate and hit the ground running. So but like you said, you know, there was some crazy battles. You guys were going back and forth. So man, that second moto at Ionia Pass, I think, is something that everybody's going to remember for a really long time.
Yeah, that second moto, man, that I just remember coming off like that race, and I was like, holy crap, man. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, bringing us through the race. I don't even know. I don't remember how it really started. I think I might have got the whole shot. I forget how it worked out, but I just remember, like, mid-race, us battling, and we were just still going at it. Like, we were about 6 laps in, and we were still passing each other back and forth still. And at this time, you know, like, my pace is starting to slow down. I'm getting, you know, a little tired, and I see Max's pace. His pace is starting to slow down too, but I can't push any harder, you know, to beat his pace. Yeah. And he can't push any harder, you know, to be faster than I am. So we're just both, like, you know, trying our absolute hardest just to, like, you know, beat each other, I guess. And yeah, that was so much fun. And, you know, we came off the track, and Max and I are buddies, so that's super cool that, you know, we can come off the track and talk about the race. And I don't know, I just think that's a pretty cool thing about us.
Well, it is. I mean, it's relatively rare too, right? I mean, there's so many people, and not even necessarily in a negative way, but just as a competitor, you know, you find little edges. It's hard to be buddy with, you know, maybe the person that you're battling to the death with. But, you know, for you guys to be so friendly, for you guys to have come up through the ranks together, and it's probably a good thing, because you guys are going to race each other until, you know, you guys aren't racing anymore with being the same age. So, you know, the future's bright for sure. You know, we obviously, with your injury, we got robbed of some of those battles, but there's there's a ton of them to come, I think. But the other thing that you were robbed of, I mean, I feel like you have to feel like you left a title on the table because you were yarding the field with 6 straight moto wins to kick off the season in Pro Mod. I'm stoked for Wes Lewis. Obviously, that goes without saying. He's a deserved champion, but you had a stranglehold on that championship when you went out. So that's got to be one that stings a little bit, I'm assuming.
It definitely stings for sure. I mean, but hats off to Wes Lewis. He deserved that one. But yeah, it definitely stinks. I mean, coming from winning those 6 motos, it definitely stings. But I can't really look down at it. It's it happened. It is what it is, and kind of got to use that, I guess, for motivation for next year, and just got to drive harder for I just kind of puts it in the back of my head, I guess.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I feel like I've always felt like, at least in the last few years, when you really kind of found your footing, became a dominant force in the youth classes, and obviously now we're seeing it on the big bike. But you're a guy that just, I feel like, has a chip on your shoulder. Like you just have this aggression to you. You have like this look in your eye, I feel like. And I mean, that's one of the things that I think, pushes a person like you to be, so, I mean, I don't know what the word is, but you're gnarly. Like, I feel like you're going to get it done. So as we look forward to, your plans for 2021 and stuff, I'm curious, kind of what you're planning on, because some of the class structure has now changed, right? There is really no pro mod anymore. It's back to kind of being the pro-am and pro sport system. But from what I can gather, the pro sport really isn't the pro sport class that we remember from the past. I think it's more like the pro stock class, actually, from what I've been told. I'm not 100% sure. So what do you know about the classes, I guess? And then what, more importantly, what's your plan for 2021?
So to be honest, you just informed me a little bit. So I knew that there was the class changes of the pro-am, pro sport, but I did not know about the pro stock kind of thing.
Hey guys, I'm going to pause our conversation with Zack for a moment because after we recorded this segment, I didn't feel good about my lack of understanding of the new supplemental rules. So I reached out to our friend AMA official Harv Whipple to help clear things up. So instead of having you listen to Zack and I try to decipher it, I'm just going to tell you what I learned from Harv. The class labeled as pro sport in the supplemental rules should actually be called pro stock. It's simply a mistake, and he wasn't quite sure how it got labeled as pro sport. So there's no changes to pro stock, which makes sense because the class is such a hit, and the class labeled pro sport is actually pro stock. And you can expect that name to be changed back before any racing takes place. So at the top level of the sport, we have the AMA ATV Pro class, of course, same as the class has been. Then we have Pro Stock, same as it was in 2020. And then we have Pro-Am, which without Pro Mod, the class should be like if you would have combined the 2020 Pro-Am and Pro Mod classes to make one class. Great decision by the series, by the way. Happy to clear that up for both Zack, I, and any of you listeners who are also confused. All right, let's hop back in. What are your plans for next year?
So I'd really like to race this pro stock class. I would like to race that pro-am for sure. But I don't, like I said, I don't know, with these class changes.
Yeah, I was really confused on that when I first read them. So I had actually printed this stuff off because I'm like, oh, maybe Zack knows. I'm thinking for a guy that's going to race him, maybe he knows. But I wasn't in on those meetings, so hard to say. But I assumed that we had actually talked at the banquet a little bit, that I knew you were going to come back and do some pro-am stuff. And then when you told me that you had interest in running pro stock, I feel like that makes so much sense because we saw some of those riders. I mean, Max had said it to me up and down that in his parents' parents, his crew, his family. I mean, they'd said it to me that, you know, he was able to go do his thing in Pro-Am and make, you know, he's really building a name for himself, just like you did prior to the injury, just like you'll continue to do. But then when you can go out there and pro stock and mix it up with those, you know, legend of the sport, top guys, I mean, I feel like there's so much to learn there. You kind of, like, for me, and I've kind of had this conversation with people, but like for me, you know, when I lined up for pro class for the first time and having never been on the gate or ridden with, you know, these guys that were once my heroes, still were my heroes at the time, really, for you to kind of break that bridge and that mental barrier and kind of like get all those jitters out before you ever go, you know, AMA ATV pro, I feel like that makes so much sense.
Exactly. And that's exactly why I wanted to race it, just to kind of like get those, you know, get used to racing those pro guys and those top level guys, and, you know, get those, like, exactly like what you said, get those first jitters out. And so it's not kind of like a holy crap, you know, new awakening, like, you know, just kind of get somewhat used to it.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I think that there's so much to be learned. I mean, there's no substitute for getting yourself on the track with those guys and seeing that pace. I mean, obviously with the facility that you guys have, you're able to ride with fast riders, probably on a regular basis, but to be on the racetrack with those top level guys, I feel like that experience is invaluable. So, you know, I think you'll surely come into the Pro-Am class as the favorite. You're my favorite anyway, especially, you know, Max has graduated. Who knows if he'll run Pro-Am as well. I do think that there's, like we talked about, whatever the intricacies of the rules are, for sure. I mean, I think there is going to be more pro rider involvement, you know, in Pro-Am, which should be good. It should help the class. And I think that that's what some of the rule changes were for, but it's going to be really interesting. I feel like you're going to hit the ground running again. I mean, I feel like you have such a great baseline from last season. You were able to, maybe it wasn't, you know, your intention, your first choice to take all this time off, but it seems like you should be able to have, you know, all your ducks in a row and hit the ground running, like a caged animal or something when you finally get out on the racetrack and are able to race again.
Yeah, I think I should be pretty. I mean, I hope I should be pretty prepared. I mean, we're gonna do, the same thing, if not more than we did last year. I mean, I'm just gonna put in. I mean, right now I've been putting it in the books with, you know, in the gym, because I've just been constantly trying to strengthen this wrist, to get it, because I haven't rode my big track yet. We have this intermediate track, and then we have the pro track. Okay. I've just been riding this intermediate track just until, you know, I feel that my wrist is like 100%. I mean, it is 100%, but I just want it, you know, to give it that extra little last bit of me, you know, working out with it for the first month, and not completely going ham on it.
No, I mean, if you did, that would be the worst thing you could do. You just shoot yourself in the foot after all this time. You have the luxury of time. It's the beginning of December right now. So you have months and months and months, and the best thing you could do is build that up. So it's awesome to hear that that you're not just diving in kind of aimlessly. You're building up to even making it on the big track and pushing yourself that way. It makes so much sense. You're laying the groundwork right now so that you can build off that going forward.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So it's that time of year, you know, people are figuring out where they're going to do their riding and training this off season. We've referenced it a little bit, obviously, as we've been talking here, but there's no place to be, I feel like, for ATV riders specifically, other than the Decker training facility, formerly known as County Line. I know you guys have been making improvements on the daily down there. How are things looking for the months ahead down there in Florida?
Things are looking awesome. You know, we have been putting in a lot of work to the facility, and we're really trying to shape it up. We've built 2 other full tracks, a complete pit bike track. Nick Gennusa was out here, and he built a turkey derby setup kind of for our facility out here, and then my dad and a few other people worked on an intermediate track, but it's more of a like a rough training track. It's like pure sand. And if we get a bunch of quads on there, I mean, that track will get like beat rough.
Okay.
So that's like our super sandy track. And then we also have a 2.5 mile woods loop. So it's just like a GNCC track. It's just barely fits a quad wide. So it's sick to go back there and work on your corners, because I think that it all ties in with what we do.
Right. Well, and that's a big thing, because I know that, I mean, I've heard rumblings over the years that GNCC guys were running out of places to really be able to put their training in. So I would assume that that's something that you guys wanted to offer for the
Yep.
woods guys too. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, that's why we built it, kind of for because the GNCC guys, we know that they don't have really anywhere to ride, so we wanted to kind of open up a place for the GNCC guys to ride, and quad guys, dirt bike guys, just a big moto family for everyone, kind of.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, the pictures, the posts, and everything I'm seeing on social media. Obviously, it's apparent that you guys are putting tons of of effort and time into this thing. But the pictures are beautiful. I mean, I find myself like watching the videos and scrolling back down so I can watch them again, because it looks like such a blast down there. So like I said, I feel like that's the place to be. Like you said, I mean, the Decker training facility. You're in Fountain, Florida, down there. We're talking pro level national track, like you said, some more tracks, amateur and youth tracks, pit bike track, woods loop, mountain bike trails, and more. And then, not to mention, private cabins, full gym, RV hookups, bathhouses, garage. So, I mean, you guys, they have it all. You guys have it all. So, people should be sure to check out the Decker training facility this off season. You can, I'm sure you can ride with Zack. You can ride with so many others. I'm thinking,
Full-time.
Yeah, like I said, I feel
Full-time gym.
Yeah, yep. The gym. I mean, you have everything. You have everything for somebody to go down there and basically prepare, for their season. You have everything that somebody needs, right?
Yeah, we that's kind of what we're trying to do, is have a place so people can just come here and camp out, and they don't have to travel anywhere. We have the full-time gym. That's set up for anyone who wants to come in who pays to ride. They get to use the gym. We have our tracks. All of our tracks are open for everyone to ride. So we got you pay to ride, and you get to ride the intermediate track, the big track, the woods loop, the pit bike track, the pee-wee track. You can use the gym. Now we just built a shop for a full-time mechanic. So we're gonna have a full-time mechanic on site.
Awesome.
We're gonna have a dyno here. You guys can dyno your bikes. Like, we're trying to have everything. Put up washer and dryers. We're, like you said, we're working on cabins right now, and we have places to rent for you guys. It should be a pretty sweet setup once it's all set and done.
Yeah, it's a one-stop shop for people. I feel like there's going to be, no excuses, because I mean, it's expensive to, I'm a guy that stayed at other facilities, but to do all the chasing around and do your laundry somewhere and have to go to a dealership to, get something looked at or worked on or whatever. I mean, all those things add up. So to have all that, especially a gym too, like to have a gym, all those things at one place, it's the place to be. Not to mention, I mean, I feel like that you're gonna find tons of top ATV racers of all demographics there, because I mean, obviously we know ATV racing is a family, but ATV racing, I feel like as a whole, the ATV community wants to support a place like, your facility, support people like you guys that are making a very ATV centric. I mean, yes, you're motorcycle friendly, obviously too, but you're ATV people. So this is a place where ATVs are always going to be involved, always going to be, kind of centered around. And this is a place, your facility is a place that not only should everybody want to be there, but we should all want to support it as well.
Exactly. And that's kind of exactly like I've said again. I mean, this is why we built it, to help the quad community, because I mean, we all know the quads don't have as many tracks as the dirt bikes have to ride. So we're trying to just put out for the quad community and help grow the quad community more.
Yeah, is that where the idea came from? I mean, did it come from you not necessarily having a place that you could go and were comfortable with? Because I know you were at Orlando, I think, one time when I was down there. Because I remember talking to your dad. But where did the idea come from to kind of take over County Line and start the Decker training facility?
So actually, crazy story.
Okay.
My dad swore up and down we were never gonna. We used to own a track like about a mile away from my house, just like a little backyard track.
Okay.
And he swore up and down, since we didn't have that anymore, we're never gonna get a track again. It's way too much maintenance. Like we have to worry about watering it, and I have my job at home. Like I can't buy a track somewhere else and do all this. Like no way. I'm never ever gonna buy a track. Nope. Like
Okay.
we'll just blah blah. So we always come down to Florida to ride every year, to train like everyone else does. And we came down this past year, and we came down to County Line. We've been here in the past, and I've really liked this track. And came here this year, and we saw a for sale sign on it. We're like, what the heck? And my dad didn't seem really interested in it at all, but I kept throwing it out there, like, hey Dad, the track's for sale. The track's for sale.
Okay.
Hey, they probably have a good price for the track. Track's for sale. And so long story short, he talked to them, and long process, but we got the track, and we're here now and so basically, I don't know why we really got the track. Honestly, we wanted it for a place to train, and then yes, there's really no places for quad guys to ride, and especially back home in PA. And it gets cold, and there's no places there for the quad guys to ride at all. I mean, the closest place for me to go is 3 hours away.
Okay.
And it's not even that great of a track.
Okay.
But yeah, so we just and for the quad guys alone, there's not really that many places out there. So that's, yes, exactly. We kind of just wanted a place for to help the quads.
No, that's funny. I'm glad I asked, because it's cool to hear Dad saying, yeah, we're not doing this ever again. We're not going to own a track ever again. And now you're going all, more all in than ever. But I feel like that's to the benefit of ATV, riders, racers as a whole. And I mean, obviously for you, there's no substitute for riding time. So as you kind of grow into your career and become a pro and all these things, all the great things that are ahead for you, it's going to be a huge advantage to you to have such an amazing place in your back pocket.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's awesome to be able to wake up every morning and I'm at a motocross track. It's like, I cannot thank my family enough, especially my dad. I mean, for everything that he's done. It's awesome. It's really cool to be able to wake up and be at a track and have a gym and have everything you need to have a full training facility in your backyard. That's it's pretty awesome.
I would assume too that it's exposed you to a lot of things, just like
Absolutely.
owning a business and all. I'm sure that you're responsible for tons of things there and stuff. So I'm assuming that there's stuff that you're going to learn and you're learning throughout this whole thing that 99.9% of 16 or 17-year-old dudes don't know.
Absolutely. So yeah, my dad has to be back home in PA to run his business at all times.
Okay.
So he comes down here like the weekends and stuff. But other than that, I mean, it's me and my mom, and we just hired our track groomer because our other track groomer passed away earlier this season, and so our it's just me, the track groomer, and my mom, and we're out there every morning, and we're prepping the track, and then my mom's up checking everyone in, and then after we prep the track, I'm in the gym and I'm trying to get my stuff done for the day, and then after all that, we're back on the dozer for like the last 2 hours of sunlight, and and then we're back at it again in the morning. Just repeats the process.
Yeah, that's awesome. The Decker Training Facility, obviously the place to be. I appreciate, I know that you, like you said, you got a lot of stuff going on. So I appreciate you making yourself available for us, telling us about the track, the facility, all the growth that's going on there. And I'm super stoked to hear that you're getting healthy, you're getting back on the machine. And I think that 2021 is going to be huge for you. So, we're excited to see you flourish next season. I'm excited to get down there and check out that track sometime soon. And with all the success ahead, I'm sure that this is just the first of many appearances for you on Digging Deep.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you having me on the show here tonight.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. So you're welcome back anytime. And as we get closer to the season and as the season unfolds, I think that you're going to be making a serious mark. So we'll get you back on for sure.
Sweet, thank you. And once again, I appreciate it. And for everyone listening, come check out the track. Should be a pretty good time this year.
Awesome, man. That's Rising Star Zack Decker, brought to you by Manscaped. Use discount code DiggingDeep20 for 20% off at manscaped.com. See you soon, buddy. Thanks again. Fun episode tonight, guys. From TRX 90s to serious topics within the sport with Nick Gennusa, bench racing, speculation, and answering some questions with Josh Cline from PH3 Photos, and talking to Zack Decker about coming back from injury, his 2021 plans, and the Decker Training Facility. Major thanks to all of tonight's guests for joining us. Thanks as well to producer Dallas Janssen, my brother, who always finds the time. Thanks to Brooke. Thanks to AMA official Harv Whipple. Thanks to our sponsors, CST Tires, shop.csttires.com, Yamaha, Valvoline, SSI Decals, DID Racing Chain, Wienen Motorsports, the Decker Training Facility, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, Evans Waterless Power Sports Coolant, Forworks Carbon, DP Brakes, Gripped Gloves, Avocado Green Mattress, Roman Health, Factory 43, and Bike Strikes and Quads, LLC. Support the brands that support our show, and don't forget to use those codes to save. Find them on our website, and be sure to click the Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner to help us out while you're there. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. If you're interested in show merchandise, Digging Deep shirts, hoodies, and more make for great gifts this holiday season and are available with free shipping on our website today. And if you're looking for another easy way to support our efforts, visit our website and click the Buy Me a Coffee button. By doing so, this allows you to set up a one-time or monthly contribution to help us out. Major thanks to Kevin Harris for the recent support and kind words. He mentioned that him and his son enjoy the show and bond over Digging Deep, and man, does that make us proud. Thanks so much, guys. Remember that you can call our voicemail line, 920-569-3519. Give us a call today, and you may hear yourself on an upcoming episode. Follow the show on social media, Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, and myself, Cody Janssen, for additional content this off-season. And keep tagging us in those screenshots showing that you're listening. I promise to keep sharing them. It's a simple and effective way to help us grow, and we really appreciate it. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Basically, wherever you find podcasts, you'll find the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. You can also find all of our episodes, additional podcast providers, sponsor links and discount codes, our show merchandise, and more, all on our website, diggingdeepatvmx.com, so check that out today. As always, subscribe to the show, give us a rating, tell your friends, share our posts, wear our shirts and hoodies. Featured guest on our previous episode, Thomas Brown marries his longtime girlfriend/fiance Brandy Cottage this weekend, so congrats to that couple. And with that, for Nick Gennusa, Josh Cline, Zack Decker, Dallas Janssen, Brooke Catherine, and I'm your host Cody Janssen, thanks for listening to the #1 podcast in ATV racing, 1 million downloads and counting. Until next time, thanks for joining us in Digging Deep with the Stars of ATV Motocross.
Guys were hauling ass for real.
I remember watching Doug Gus, I don't know who it was, Steel City, running the same times Friday afternoon as James Stewart was on Sunday back then. at Steel City.
I would need to check this out.
I'm dead serious. It was mental. I've never seen quads go that fast.
It's not easy, Steve. It's not easy.
Listen, JB, I don't want to hear.
It's not easy.
I don't want to hear.
Quadlers are freaking gnarly.
You don't chew Big Red. Then. What the?
Support for the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, providing you the best tools for your grooming experience. It's time to gear up and get the gift or give the gift of shaving this holiday season. I'm talking about the Manscaped Perfect Package 3.0. Included in this brand new Perfect Package, which makes for the perfect gift this holiday season, is Manscaped's new and improved Lawnmower 3.0 electric trimmer. The greatest ball hair trimmer ever created, features an anti-accident cutting-edge ceramic blade, long-lasting battery, waterproof technology, and an LED light feature to illuminate grooming areas for closer and more precise trimming. The Manscaped Perfect Package 3.0 includes literally everything you need to keep trimmed, cut-free, and smelling nice down there. Trimmers, deodorants, moisturizers, boxers, and more, all included in this package. 'Tis the season to Manscaped, so get yourself, your dad, your brother, and your friends the best gift of all, the Manscaped Perfect Package 3.0. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com by using code DIGGINGDEEP20.